they're going to learn something. Grapes are one of the most choked on things.
I believe it.
See? But it's okay because she's coughing. You don't need to worry until they stop. You okay? Also, laughing is bad. Don't laugh and cough and chew.
Good.
Yeah, because that's how it goes down the wrong thing. See, look, Alyssa's trying to help you.
Okay.
She says, Crystal, chew and then swallow.
I'm good.
You all right? Okay, no more food.
I know. I made my eyes water.
All right, guys. Welcome, everybody. For those who were asking in advance, we are going to record this, and we will stick the recording up on the FTSA blog when it's all said and done, and email everybody and let them know it's up. So if you want to go back through things, you can. In case you didn't get the heads up, we have a special guest joining Denise today for our AMA.
Actually, just as I pointed, a fly went by. And I'm like, ooh, not the fly.
So Crystal is going to join Denise for our AMA today. We did get a whole bunch of questions in advance, so we're going to tackle like 2 or 3 of those and give you guys a chance to get settled and submit some questions, and then just roll on all Q&A the whole session today. So
this would be fun.
Hopefully, we're gonna hope it's fun. That's the idea, right?
Where are you coming from? Just say, oh, here we go. We got Texas.
Brito looks different.
We got, oh, hi. Yeah, I know who you are. We got Massachusetts. We got Missouri. He put his internet name.
Oh.
Illinois. Brito looks different. He's getting thin. Iowa. Hello, Em. Washington State. Tucson, Arizona. Happy Independence Day to all of you. Bro, oh, excellent. We got somebody from Belgium. All right. This is
you guys
super.
Ready?
I'm ready.
All right. I'm going to put up the first one here, and we're going to start with a small one. So, from your experience, what's your number one best piece of advice when training dogs for somebody new to training?
You can have that one first.
Is that how this is going to go?
I'm liking my role.
I hate your role.
Like, you start. And then just say something really smart, and I'll say exactly.
Best piece of
advice
for somebody new to dog training.
Get a good mentor. Find people that are doing the thing that you love to do in a way that you like doing it. And, Fenzi Dog Academy.
Thank you. You can stop now. It's my turn. Take classes at Fenzi Dog Sports Academy. That will absolutely skyrocket your training.
No, get the attitude. Have fun, and you're gonna mess up. So get over that piece immediately, because every dog's different, every human's different, and find people that you enjoy training with. That's a game changer if that's possible.
It is. And keep your dog in the game. If your dog shows any inclination to leave the game, something is wrong. So just throw out food. I never would have done that sometime in the past. Just like, what? Free food for messing up? Don't worry about it. Just because, frankly, you did it. So just throw out free food, keep your dog in the game, walk away, and rethink what you want to do. Because a happy dog, you can, once you learn the skills, if your dog is happy and wants to play your games, you can teach anything really fast. If your dog is unhappy, it doesn't matter how good you are at teaching the skills, you're going to have a really hard time keeping your dog in the game. So I think that's my number one piece of advice. Learn what happy looks like and make sure your dog stays there. Otherwise, stop, reevaluate.
Same for the handler, too. If you're not happy, it's both. You both have to be happy.
Crystal, they're having a little trouble hearing you. Is there any way that we can smush more to the microphone?
It's kind of weird. It's actually right facing me.
Us. Yeah, let's move it up here.
Here, let's do that. Let's see if that makes a difference. Does that help?
Let's find out if that helps.
I will let Karen tell us if she can. Yep. So other people said they can hear you.
Okay.
So Karen, let us know if you still can't hear Crystal, and we'll see if we can wiggle anything else around.
Yeah, we're using the same microphone.
So I'm going to put a question up from somebody who just came in. So I'll let you guys tackle this one next. I'm sure a lot of people have the same issue of choosing what to prioritize, especially when there's so many cool classes to take in your training. How do you prioritize what you're training?
Well, for me, it's whatever I'm passionate about that morning. I have zero written plans or anything. I literally wake up in the morning. So Zen this morning, and I woke up and I said, I am so excited to work on teaching him the kick cue, which means I'm going to kick a toy. I want to progress that. And I have people here, which I often don't. So right off the bat, anything that involves other people goes right to the top of the priority list. But it's really what is pulling me. I don't ever work on things that are not inspiring me at a given time because I don't do a good job on them. I have to care. And if if there's something that really needs to get worked on and I really don't want to work on it, then I need to ask myself some questions, because I love training my dog. Does not matter what I'm training. So if I don't want to work on something, there's something about the way I'm teaching it, which is either distressing me or the dog. And that means it's a bad training plan. So what is it I'm not liking about that? And figure that out, start a new plan, and then I should be excited about my new plan. So that's how I do it.
So long ass down. Tell me about that.
Yeah, long ass down. Some things you have to work on. And it takes a lot to think up a clever and creative way to inspire yourself. She has a little problem with that. She has to do like an 8-minute long down. So I guess then you just have to tell yourself that you're coming up on trial and you're going to pass. Is that motivating?
I mean, for some people, I know I kind of have to have a sport in mind. If I don't have a sport that I'm going to compete in or do something in, then I just tend to dink around with a lot of stuff and I don't make a lot of progress. But when I have a goal, then I tend to make a lot of progress. And I tend to be the person too that's a month out. I find out there's a trial. I'm like, oh, we could try that. I mean, I tried a whole new sport with a month and didn't even know all the exercises. So there's that with me.
See, you guys can't feel how my heart rate just went through the roof at that point. Oh my God. Slow down. Like, that's my worst nightmare. I absolutely train to a goal though. Absolutely. I know where I'm going. I know what exercises I need to get done. But in terms of what I actually choose to work on, it's whatever I want to work on.
The next one. First, thank you for all your dog training help and for your honest and empathetic thoughts about things. How do I know if I'm managing an issue or training it out with the use of toys and play?
Wow, that is a great question. That's a great question.
Yes,
I'll answer that one. Yeah, I'm going to answer that one. You can just stay quiet.
That's cool.
There's no line. There's no differentiation. And there's no way you'll ever know. So the act of managing and moving a dog forward with food and toys is training. Some dogs, it's kind of amazing. Like, management is the training plan and it happens so fast. You're like, damn, I trained it. Other dogs, they never get past the management phase. Some, especially behavior stuff. If you think about how hard it would be to turn an introvert into an extrovert, a person, or an extrovert into an introvert, the core of who you are is who you are. So when you're trying to change who a dog is at a very core level, management may be the name of the game forever, but it's not a terrible thing. It just means that you're going to settle in and accept that, because it's not like you have an alternative. It's not like you can say, I'm done with this management. It's time to train. The only real difference with training is that if your management's working beautifully, but you really want to train, you'll change it, right? Because there's different ways to manage, or you might push a little bit harder, or you might actually soften is sometimes the issue. But I love that question, because I think I've heard people say things like, well, that's just managing it. And I'm like, yes, good. Right. And I assume the person is chatting about behavior here and not dog training, because I don't manage very much in the world of acquired skills. But the more skills you acquire around behavior issues, the more likely it is that the behavior, by virtue of not being reinforced, is going to get better or go away.
So I'm going to go back and forth from the ones that were asked in advance and the ones that were asked here live for a little bit. So Ava asked this question. A couple other people actually asked this question in the group from advance too. So from a human coaching standpoint, what are your biggest tips for getting the point across clearly to the human part of the team?
You want to start that one or me?
Go ahead. I have a lot of thoughts. Go ahead.
Okay. So I see dogs a lot like I see people. So I try to break things down into small pieces for people. And I try, if it's possible, I try not to tell them, do this with your left foot, do this with your right foot. So for example, I was helping Krista with her dog's fronts yesterday. So what I said is, move the hand closest to your dog's butt. Because I think the processing time for trying to remember what or maybe I'm just putting this on other people because I can barely manage left and right. But for me, the process of remembering left hand is harder than noticing my dog's butt and moving the hand closest to my dog's butt. Maybe that's a personal thing. Or like when I want people to slow down, instead of giving them specific footwork, I'll say, I don't want to hear your feet when you stop walking. And that guarantees good footwork, because it's just, I don't know, it's just the way we do it. But if that doesn't work and I have to give really specific advice, I focus on what I want them to do. And I try not to spend much time on what they shouldn't do. It's not that I'll never say, hey, you're causing an issue with it. I will. It's just very unusual. For the most part, I just try to tell people what to do. and I ignore the problems unless they can't be ignored. They're really big.
So a lot of times we're helping the human while they're also helping their dog. And it's really nice to ask the human, do you have a downstay or a way that you can, put your dog somewhere that they can do what they need to do, but you can really focus? So when we're asking someone to pay attention to their dog and pay attention to us, that's really hard. Yeah. And it was fun coaching with Denise, because you have to be careful if you can't both be giving somebody advice. And so you can really only tune into one person talking. So if you're coaching with someone else, just let one person do the talking, and you can always give them little things and they can keep using their voice. But that's also something that I found to be really helpful.
Excellent.
And celebrate. That's something that Denise is so great about. Like, she's constantly like, yeah, that right there. Woohoo, good job. And it's so motivating for the human. And it's the same thing we should be doing with our dogs as well, in whatever way they need. So the motivation piece there is really important.
I will say it's one of the fun things I enjoy about training with Denise too.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Yeah. All right. So how do you think about where you train? I'm being intentional about getting my dog out to new places, but should I rotate through several places? Do you exhaust training in one place before moving on? Work on very fluent behaviors only, etc.
Well, by sheer coincidence, that was the topic of this morning. There's Elizabeth is here too. So there's 3 of us here, and we were having this exact conversation. And I don't know the answer. I am in flux about what I'm thinking about it. We were pointing out that Elizabeth's dog is a little overfaced in this environment because she's a curious girl. She wants to look at stuff. So one side of my brain says, I really wish we could change this environment and make it easier for her to focus. But the other side of my brain says, are we just delaying the pain? And if we teach dogs that learning new things, high rate of reinforcement stuff, in new environments gets it off the table, so later on it's easier to go to new environments, because the current traditional advice is teach in the easiest environments possible, really pristine. And I'm not so sure that's right. And so it's one of those things I'm just going to start asking people, right? So when I encounter dog trainer people that I know are good trainers, I'm going to ask them, what are your thoughts on this? Because I know people have been super successful going both ways, and I'd like more information. So my answer is the jury is still out in my head.
So anecdotally, Radish is my search dog. I do search and rescue with her, and she is my most solid dog. Is that because it's Radish, or is it because how I trained? And with her, I was everywhere, because knowing as a search dog, you have to be in every environment, in every crazy place. And because she's searching, and it's such a primary reinforcer to her to hunt and to find, everywhere I went, we would just start searching. We'd start looking for stuff. And so I think she's I can walk anywhere and say, ready? And she's ready to go any instant, anywhere I go. So she's the most solid. And it makes me really think about, because her job is searching. And I knew that I had to have her in lots of places. That was my priority, was to get her lots of places. And so I'm with that. As soon as I get her out, I'm training her. So as a baby girl, she was out everywhere.
So Zen is not good at it. And I did a lot of work in one environment, and I did a lot of socializing in all other environments. We did train out in public about a week ago, and he did come out of the car and he did work for me, but I could feel the struggle. So I think what I'm going to do, and I tried it out that day and I liked what I saw, have him come out, ask him to do something very simple, give him his toy, say, okay, now go be a dog, let him go do doggy things in that environment. And then when he asked to work again, which he did, worked him. And then that evening before we left that park, I took him out of the car one more time. And right off the bat, I did the same thing. And I said, go be a dog. And his rate of returning was endlessly faster. Like I would say, if the first time it took him 3 minutes to check in, I would say it was 30 seconds. So it was a big difference. So I think that's my current plan forward. And I would be inclined to use up a space, because that was part of the question, for convenience reasons. Just it's easier for me to go to one park and use it up until the dog shows up. They're going, we're going to work, right? Plus, I am also battling a little bit of girl stuff. So even in the most familiar environments, every once in a while, he'll get locked in on a smell. And so it's not, I mean, maybe that just never, there's no 100%, right? So you always risk going to a new place and having your dog be fascinated by something. You just hope it doesn't happen in a trial.
Fair enough. All right. So to follow up the prioritization question, what about prioritizing behavior modification?
Have fun.
Same. She's just said have fun. I think she means I have to answer that one first. So it's really, you're not going to teach skills to a dog like the what I call the fun stuff, because I love training dogs. If the dog is fearful or angry, right? You have to deal with matters of over arousal, I think, before you can do anything else. And I'm also running into that in my training. He's not fearful, but he's a little bit angry. And we're trying to get him a little bit less angry, a little bit less frustrated around an exercise we're doing. And the way we're doing it is, whether we use these words or not, is arousal control. Don't send him to do the exercise if his arousal level is too high, because it leads to failure, right? So then you need a plan in place for arousal modulation. When I think about behavior modification, I find that if I just think about arousal, I can mentally, it puts me on a really good track regardless of what the issue is. It just doesn't matter. If I think the dog's arousal level is good in that environment, then the dog is probably not having an issue. If the dog's arousal level is not good, it doesn't matter if it's because the dog is fearful, frustrated, angry, whatever, sad, flat, under aroused. If I have a technique that either brings the dog up in arousal or down in arousal, food, toys, games, whatever, if I do that, it seems to solve the underlying behavior problem. It just kind of comes along. It's almost like a dog can't express a negative emotion if there's no arousal to fuel it. So I don't focus as much on the emotion as much as I do on the arousal, even though I know that the cause of the arousal is the emotion. Did that make sense?
I mean, I think it made sense to me.
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah.
We're all good? All right. If not, let Crystal try.
All right. We got a few different variations on this question, both now and in the pre-question. So how do you kind of handle an error if you think the behavior is known by the dog? That is, it's not a new behavior, one that's normally done pretty well.
Well, we're just on a roll. These are all the things we're dealing with. So the first question I asked myself is, do I think the dog is choosing the behavior, or do I think my dog is reacting to how they're feeling? If the error is being driven by reaction to how they're feeling, I work really, really hard just to get the dog in a better mental space. I will feed the dog. I will use toys. I will do whatever I need to do so that the next time I do it, when I send the dog in, they will show me the behavior that's inside of them. So let's say I ask my dog to do a sit stay and somebody rings the doorbell. And let's say my dog is young and that's not going to happen. I'm going to address that first by yelling at the door, I'll be there in a minute. And then I have two good choices. One is put the dog in a crate. That's what I'm going to do most of the time because there's some poor soul standing outside my door. The second is I'm going to put the dog back in the stay, feed, get the arousal down. If I think this is reasonable, or if it's Crystal standing outside the door, she can just stand there. So I'll be like, can you ring the bell again? Feed. Knowing a behavior like sit, there's a real question about what we mean by that. Because does the dog know how to do a sit stay? Yes. Does the dog know how to do it when somebody's ringing the doorbell? Because now the arousal's in a completely different place. But sometimes it looks different than that. Sometimes you put the dog on a sit stay. The doorbell rings. The dog goes, oh, I really want to go. The dog does not. You open the door. The dog does not break. You greet your friend. The dog does not break. The dog is looking at your friend with the biggest, puppiest eyes you've ever seen. The dog does not break. And then the dog, you can see it. The dog looks at you and then just goes, right? That's a choice. That dog could have done better. What am I going to do about it? I'm not going to go back to food. What I'm going to do is just put the dog back. Let's sit down. Let's do this again. Or if I think it's an issue that the dog is out, I'll put the dog in a crate. But I'd be more likely, because that dog, on a scale of 1 to 10, the dog that's losing it at the doorbell is at an 8 or a 9, and you're not winning that. The dog who is able to sit there for through the worst of it might be at a 6. Let's say 5 is perfect. At a 6, I will put the dog back and say, I think you can do this. And I'll release the dog pretty quickly because I don't want to rehearse failure. So it's a complicated question about what does the dog know. The counter question to that is, if the dog knows it, why didn't they do it? And maybe that's where you would always want to start. Like, if the dog knows it, why didn't they do it? If the dog knows it because the dog didn't do it because the dog would rather bite than let go, right? Okay. Did the dog know it? Yes. Could the dog do it on this day in this environment? Well, their behavior is telling us no. But I don't give dogs a 100% pass, as some people do. They will never, ever push beyond that. And the reason I don't give dogs a 100% pass is that I find that sometimes telling the dog, I'm actually going to get involved on this one because I think you can do better. My line in the sign, my personal line in the sand is no pain or fear. We all have our line in the sand. So I won't escalate to the point of hurting my dog physically or frightening them. I will tell my dog, I'm really disappointed in your behavior. So that's on the fear scale, right? I will physically remove my dog. That's on the pain scale. Both of those don't reach the occasion of pain or fear. One, because taking a dog away by the collar is not painful. It might annoy the dog. It's like if I grab you by your shirt and pull on you.
I'm glad you couldn't reach me.
I tried.
I saw it. I was like,
it's irritating. People pulling on your I did it. It's annoying to have people pulling on you, but is it painful? No. My dog does not want me to come up and take them by the collar. So it's on the pain scale, somewhere in there, because if you pull up on the collar, it could become uncomfortable. For me, that's my line. But I will enter the conversation with my dog. I will say, I don't like what you're doing. Don't do that. I just told you to come and get in the car, and you looked at me and you walked off sniffing. Don't do that. So it's a hard question. I will say that if I look back historically, 90% of the times I have corrected my dog in this way I'm talking about. So not hitting the pain or fear scale, but correcting. I have, as I've learned more, as time has gone by, as I understand my dog more, 90% of the time I would say I looked back and thought, I did not handle that correctly for what I know now about this dog at that time. Those are my thoughts.
I think about life skills versus training skills too. So I think I differentiate a little bit with those two things.
Yeah. So
like going back to the car is a different handling of an error than not sitting when I say sit when I'm thinking about competition behaviors.
Absolutely.
So that's always something too, because also when I say they think the behavior, so much of that is on me, because what else is actually happening? Because there's so much that we are unaware of, and they're dealing with all of that. So I won't let my dog fail more than twice if I'm doing competition skills, and I make sure that I reset with something else. And if I don't have a plan in that moment, I can be done. I'm okay being done at that moment. I think some people get really like weirded out by that. They're like, no, they have to end on a high note. It's like, well, no, it's not a punishment to them. It's done because my brain isn't there to be able to do anything about this right now. But when it comes to the life skills, so like I'm staying out of my van right now because I'm here at the ranch, yay. And so my dogs are telling me, hey, we're spending too much time in the van. I don't want to go back. Well, I'm going to handle that differently than if I'm at home and we're just going from the house to the van and they say, nope, I'm going to go, sniff a squirrel butt or something. Not that they do that.
It's interesting to think about this because, we talk about dogs' wants, dogs' needs, and people too, wants and needs. My dog has been refusing to get in the car after we train him, no joke, for an hour. No joke. 1 hour of working.
Okay, I'm embarrassed that you say that out loud.
He dips him. Then he gets out. He gets wet. He goes, sits, and then he doesn't want to get in the car. I'm like, you have got to be kidding. So that gets to the want need scale. He wants to work 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, 16 hours. I don't know. Never, ever will voluntarily stop doing stuff. I mean, because he just loves to work. It's his whole life. Does he need to work 12 hours a day? No. Does he want to? Yes. And I think I feel very comfortable at that point saying, I know you don't want to get back in the car now. You want to work. And that's not a choice. Right now, you just don't have a choice. You have had so much time. But like she said, in some cases where the dog hasn't had a very good day, I'm a lot more sympathetic.
So that was Radish. For me this morning, right. Radish said, I don't want to get in the van. And last night, she didn't get cuddle time. So, and that's our thing.
It's fundamental.
And so I fell asleep and I didn't get her out. And I was like, oh man, I'll do it tomorrow. And she was like, I don't want to get in the van. And I thought, oh man, okay, you're right. So I brought her back in. And we just cuddled and we just had a little bit of snuggle time. And then I said, okay, now can we? And she was like, yeah, now we can. So it just those little things. Sometimes it's the need, want question.
Yeah. And I think it's like how we look at children. I don't personally let my dogs completely rule my life. Mostly, yes, not completely. And I'm pretty comfortable saying I need time for myself now. But it's just like with a child, it's in the big picture. Has everybody gotten enough? And I think, and there's no, like, because people say, well, how do you decide? I don't know. You don't, you guess. And then you say, how am I doing? How are the other dogs doing? Are we getting enough? And that will absolutely influence it. And that whole, like, so that's a life matter. The thing about training, when I bring my dog in, at home, it's usually 15 minutes. Here, it's forever. When I bring my dog in to train, the only thing I'm doing at that time is training my dog. That dog has 100% of me and my attention. And so that means every single second I can adapt to his needs. And I can just be obsessing over, why did the last rep not go the way I wanted? Even if he's on a downstay, have a conversation. Let's talk this through. Where did I go wrong? We can fix it. We can try. He has 100%. The problem with life is that in life, I have other things. So once he's out that door and he won't get in the car, I have a new problem. I have another dog in the car who wants out. He wants his turn. I have people I'm working with here who also have dogs. Like, suddenly it's not all about my dog. And maybe it could be under different circumstances. And I think just for sanity's sake, we need to reserve the right to say that the dog is not the center. What are all the other things that have to get done at this time? And I actually think it's a quiet conflict between how some dog trainers look at positive reinforcement training and others. So some people, it's truly, they want it as a lifestyle for the dog without exception. You never say no to your dog. Anytime you don't like their behavior, you stop and ask yourself what you can do to fix it. Frankly, my life is really complicated and I just can't do that. I have other players, but I sure can in a formal training situation. And for me, that's just a really different and important distinction.
So we had a couple people ask a variation on Paula's question about arousal. So Paula wrote, I have a 3-year-old mini bull terrier who gets over aroused at dogs in motion, including her housemates. Highly responsive to shaping behaviors. Where to start? We also had a couple people ask about just like raising arousal or lowering arousal or like modulating arousal. And I thought you might be able to tie them together.
So I think the thing that comes to me with this ties into the last question. It's a hard place to be, because how much time does the questioner, the answer is every single time the energy level starts going up, you stop what you're doing and you start working on it. Feeding, shaping, go to your mat, you turn it into a training session. But now you're a part of that picture. And that is why in life, many people with many dogs, multiple dogs, complicated lives, result to the forms of management that don't require interaction. Baby gates, crates, covered wire crates. If it was my dog, because of that, what I would probably do is every time I started, I would cheerfully say, go to your house, send the dog into the crate, throw a cookie in, get out of your house, go in your house, throw in a cookie. I would turn it into a 30-second training session, lock the dog in the crate, cover the crate until the activity level went down or I thought the dog could come back out. And yes, over time, management can train the dog. The only thing is she's saying this is a 3-year-old dog. Mm-hmm. So that also suggests it's not just I'm just outgrowing it, because lots of puppies do stuff like that and they outgrow it. So in my world,
a lot of rehearsal.
Yes. So hopefully you haven't had a lot of rehearsal, but if you have, I would start with pretty hardcore developing great love of the crate, use it as needed, manage behavior when the dog is out, and hope that moves you in the correct direction.
This person said they've taken healing classes with 5 different Fenzi instructors, all offer great tips and insights and are slightly different. I'm wondering if you recommend sticking with just one method or if it's okay to kind of move around and use different techniques from each of the courses and workshops.
Correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I know, all of our methods are compatible. Is that true?
Even if they're not, I mean,
I do think there's a couple instructors who would say they're not entirely compatible. They're
okay. So like
they're all friendly to the dog, but they do it different ways.
Right. And yeah, probably the luring shaping distinction would be a bigger one than most.
Movement, non-movement, backwards. There's so many different.
Are there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, so that's a tricky question then, because I tell people learn all the ways of healing you can. Just because you're going to find another dog that needs a different thing. Like what I'm doing with my own dog, Zen, to improve in his healing is the exact opposite of what I'm having these other two people do here right now. So their dogs are more prone to foraging, wrapping, and healing wide, right? My dog is climbing up my butt. So everything, all my footwork is literally the exact opposite of what I'm doing. I want to know every technique out there because how I'm going to handle a low motivation dog and how I'm going to handle a high motivation are really different. But then what I would say, if you're running into a situation where one person's super heavy on the shaping and one's on luring, if you find something you're feeling good about with a given dog, still take the other classes at bronze if you can, right? Just get the knowledge, get the information, but stick with the path as long as it's accessible to you and there's classes to be taken. Then when you've got your healing wherever it is you want it, right? You've done the class, you feel good about it. Now go back and look at the holes that you don't like. You might find that things from the other instructors might be the place to go to fill in those holes. And I'll just tell you, I have a class in self-study called Advanced Healing and Problem Solving. It's got a lot of information in there. Handling a dog who crowds versus forages. It's just very detailed. Some people may be interested in that because it doesn't matter how you trained it. At some point, I shouldn't know how you trained it because your dog should be doing this thing called healing. And I'm looking and I'm like, yeah, that looks like healing. When you're at that point, it's not going to matter what technique you take from, as long as the dog has the skill. If your dog doesn't know how to do pivots, then telling you to go back to your pivots is probably not going to work. But I think all of us eventually actually do teach the same basic skills. We all teach pivots. We all spend a lot of energy on finding position. And so you could probably fill in the gaps with anyone once you have something that looks a lot like healing.
So I think it depends on where you are in your training journey. If it's your very first dog and you're starting out training, then I think it behooves you to stick with kind of one idea. But if you've been training a while, then it's eat the meat, spit out the bones. So just take the pieces from all the different ones and keep incorporating that to what you're doing and see what works together.
Is that like a Missouri phrase? Eat the meat and spit out the bones. Have you ever heard that? We don't say that in California.
I have not heard that before. But it got to the point. It conveyed the point rather well.
I totally got it.
It's a saying. I eat the meat, spit out the bones. Like, just take what you need.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. Okay. Next question.
Sorry, vegetarians.
Mel wants to know if there's any way to desensitize a dog from thunderstorms and fireworks, which I'm sure is on everybody's mind today.
Well, you're not starting today. I'll tell you that. Amy Cook has a class on exactly that. And it really involves, it's really interesting because I had wrongly thought that you couldn't work on that issue unless you had the issue going on and that you could control the level of intensity. But Amy actually teaches it as sound means food. So she very much controls the level of intensity in advance. So I'm going to say, yes, you can do it. I'm also going to say I've never done it. And I've never had a dog who had issues. Where I live, we don't have thunderstorms. So I wouldn't do it. If the only thing I ever had to deal with was fireworks, and where I am now, I don't even have that, I would use medication. I won't train for something that happens once a year. However, one of the reasons Crystal's here now is because fireworks are very, very bad where she is and almost non-existent. I've not heard anything where I am.
There's some, but
so pretty minor, and her dogs struggle. And so it's just more comfortable for her because she says it can go on for weeks, like before, after. So that's my perspective on that.
That's a rough one. I've been working on it for a long time. I've made a difference, but medication is my friend. It's really helped them out. It's helped kind of bridge that gap. Thunderstorms are difficult. As my dog became a senior, thunderstorms became an issue. All of the loud noises became more issues. And I mean, just things will change over the dog's life. Those things they didn't have an effect on, now they do. So it's, I haven't successfully completely got a dog to be able to handle it. And I've been working really hard on it with lots of different people.
All right. So Schützen GP question for the two of you, which is, I'm sure, fun. So hi, Denise. I'm getting back into Schützen GP after being away for 8 years. I'm relearning the new ways versus the old yank and crank. And I noticed when teaching blinds, some people make the dog plots halfway around the blind then release. What's the purpose of that exercise? And how does that benefit in a trial? And how long do you do that technique before fading it out?
They do what? Make the dog.
They have the dog down. Go around the blind down.
Oh.
Do either of you do that to start? If you don't, it's hard to talk to it. So
yeah,
I've seen it, and
I've seen it, but I don't do it.
I think the reason people were doing it is, one, to keep control of the dog, and two, to straighten them out, because dogs that start getting really wound up can get wider and wider. I think they often down the dog to get the dog to straighten out. Does it work? I don't know, because it's not something I do. If I did it, it would strictly be for control. Lie down, come, sit, listen. That would be why I would do it. But I don't find that most IG people do things to get their dogs to listen. They tend to do patterns. So it's probably a slightly different reason.
Yeah, I just teach the blinds differently. I mean, it's.
Do you want to talk about it? Go for it.
So I don't know if it's interesting to most people, but you have the 3 blinds on one side, 3 blinds on the other, and they're kind of staggered. And then you walk down the middle of the field and you send your dog to the blind going one way. And then you put your hand up and it's almost like you catch them, and then you send them off to the next blind, and then you catch them again and send them to the next blind. So that's the activity. And then when they get to the 6th blind, that's where the bad guy is, that has the sleeves. They have to go bark. So for anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about. So I think I like teaching it so the blinds that are going this way, if the bad guy is over here, that you're going to go around the blind on the far side, so that then you're coming back and you're looking at me basically to see that I'm sending you to the next blind. So I don't have to have the down after, because the dog is already wrapping and then looking back to me to know what to do next. And that goes to what Denise said, is I want them actively listening to know what's happening. So it's not this worry about them not going to the blind, because yes, they know the helper's in that last blind. And so they'll start skipping blinds and doing all kinds of craziness. And so I'm assuming too that having them down at the blind is also helping them to not just advance and go straight to the bad guy. So I think it's that listening piece. It's the way that you have them go around it. And a lot of times I'll have them go around and then come back and reward to me. And I can send them back to that blind again and then to the next one. So it's a listening exercise.
You know, the last seminar I attended was Aaron Robbins. It was a flyball seminar. And if you guys have seen flyball, it's just kind of balls to the wall fast. Everything's happening. It looks like this completely out of control event. And he said, I trained this in a way that at any point in this skill, I can stop my dog's behavior. I can send my dog to the box, stand in front of the box, and stop my dog on a tug. I can have my dog take the ball, and I'm standing in front of the first jump, and the dog turns around and takes the toy. Like, he does not, of course he teaches the pattern, but he says it's really important to be able to do that, because when you're trying to fix details anywhere in the run that you don't like, you can't if the dog just blows past all of your input. And when he said it, it struck me, because it's very much how I approach all of my training these days. I want to be able to stop my dog, change their direction. I don't care what we're doing. I don't care if we're in the middle of barking. I want to be able to tell my dog, stand, back up, come back to heel. And people are like, what are you doing? What are you doing? It's almost the opposite of pattern training. I always want part of my dog's ear on me, not being 100% sure what's next. Because when dogs get 100% sure, you start to lose control. It's like, I got this. They don't need you anymore. And you start falling off the radar. If you start falling off the radar, dogs start making their own decisions. So when I think about like the blinds, if I was going to teach them today, I would be having a field day with that. Like, I would be doing it all 100 different ways. Like, yeah, I sent you around that blind, and then I called you to heel, and I sent you around that blind, and then we did an out of motion, and I sent you around that same blind you just went around. Like, I would want it to be an exceptionally responsive to me exercise, so that if I want to, I can tweak it. And I wonder if that addition of the down is simply just the tiniest start of that way of thinking, but it's something I think about in all of my training. I want to be able to stop the middle of a protection exercise and do my scent articles. And I want that to be doable. It's important to me. It's very important to me. It's unusual. You don't see it much.
Ryan asked, how do you make day-to-day life more fun for a genetically anxious, handler aggressive Mal? Ideas.
You get that one.
Genetically anxious, handler aggressive. Do I want that one?
No, that's why I give it to you.
In other words, it's a hard question, Ryan.
Yeah.
Well, it is.
Medication is going to be a friend
absolutely. There. It's an if a dog is unhappy in life, this is where I go with medication. My personal choice would not be to medicate for human happiness. So an example, you have a human who really wants a dog who can go to a cafe and sit under the table. It just so happens that their dog tries to bite the waiter. I'm not okay with medication in a case like that, because I'm like, well, don't bring the dog to a cafe and put them under the table. That is so far off the dog doesn't want to do that. The dog doesn't need to do that. So don't do that. When it's in your house, When it's the dog's life, when you're talking 16, 18 hours a day of unhappiness, I'm very open to the idea of doing pretty much anything that will improve that dog's quality of life. And it would be the same with a person. If I was living with a person who was struggling all the time, I'm not going to hold out. But if they're struggling because I want to take them to the fair and put them on a roller coaster, so I would absolutely be contemplating whether or not medication was an option that would help that dog. The handler aggressive, I don't know if you mean completely spontaneously, because that's weird.
Yeah, that's the...
I would be playing games like fetch, switch. I don't know where that aggression is showing up.
And are they able to have food as a reward? Find out what it is that they enjoy. So not just what toys or what food, but what behaviors, what activities do they enjoy? And then use those to your advantage. So whatever it is that they find reinforcing, and try to use that in your life, in your everyday life.
I will say that one thing that makes me incredibly sad, and it does come up around mouths a lot and the working line dogs, there are too many people who crate their dogs a lot because the dogs are hard to live with. And the dog might be absolutely normal, no anxiety at all. But the solution to a pain in the butt dog is to convenience the handler. Lots of crate time. That bothers me. I feel like if you get a dog like this, I'm not talking about this person because this person said the dog is anxious and aggressive. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about dogs that are painful to live with by who they are. They just need higher levels of stimulation. I hate to see the answer be, I don't have time for you. So even though I was at work all day and you were crated, I want to come home, I want to make dinner, I want to watch TV. Like, I kind of feel like, wow, that's pretty unfair because you picked this dog. And I'm not speaking to this person, to be super clear. But I want to say it because I think it's a quiet issue that people aren't talking about that much.
So we got a question on that specifically. So let me put it up and you guys can answer it kind of and tie into that. With it. Sniggeline says, and I hope you're pronouncing your name correctly. I apologize if I didn't. What would you advise to a person who would like to welcome a Belgian Mal, but who is afraid about not being able to fulfill its needs? What does such a breed actually need daily?
Well, I already said you're going to want to spend some time thinking about needs versus wants. I don't think Mals need as much as the general public thinks they need, but they need high quality. What they need is not to be given a puzzle toy for dinner. They need you. Working dogs need people, and they need brain work, and they need a different kind of a day. They don't need to run 10 miles a day. That is just not true. I'm not saying some dogs might not like that. What they need, though, is somebody who finds them entertaining and who wants to spend time with a dog who's like that. Zen, in my opinion, is an easy to live with dog. It's around work that he's a pain in the butt. And that's because he likes to work so much. So I can't talk about fulfilling his needs because if you asked him, he would say, I lead a miserable life. I don't get to work nearly as much as I should. But you know what? When he's not working, when he's not fighting me about ending work, he's fine in the house. He's mellow. He's fine. So picking your lines, picking the individual dogs, contemplate a young adult who you already know what you've got. All dogs should be able to stop genetically. Drive doesn't mean chronic movement, climbing the walls. That's anxiety or frustration or frantic behavior. Pick for lines where the owner says, no, this dog has a fantastic off switch. Works till the cows come home, lots of drive, but no, very capable of settling once they're in the house. And I think so many people don't know the difference between drive and arousal, that's part of the issue. The dogs that climb the walls, they breed them because they're like, oh, so much drive. I'm like, oh, so much anxiety. Like, it's really helpful to know what you're looking at. And I personally will always, going forward, select for low arousal dogs, even though that means they may be slow to mature. Zen was no firecracker as a baby. He had a litter mate that didn't bite a damn thing till he was 8 months old. Now he bites like crazy. He's good biting, Lower arousal dogs often look dull, very dull as puppies because they just, okay, I'll eat the food. Yeah, I'll chase a ride, but they don't bring any action. They grow into it. They grow into that drive. 8-week-old puppies are showing you movement and energy. So they look a lot better as babies. And I knew that. I know that. And so working with Zen, even though he was very calm, very quiet, you would say, go around the cone or get on the place, and he would walk around the cone. Trot. Adding distance made no difference. You send him to place. He's like, I'll go. But there was nothing fun or snappy or flashy about it. But I knew it was okay because in my heart, I knew he played with that rag and he hung on like a dead animal. Like he does not let go. He just, and I knew that it was only a matter of time before the drive got so strong that the speed and all would come. And at this point, I have more than enough dog for anything I could possibly want to do. And he is still a pretty reasonable dog in the house. So those are things to think about. Do you have more to add to that?
Yeah, I would consider fostering.
Oh, yeah.
So if you foster from a Belgian Malinois or just whatever breed, you know, I like fostering from that breed specific rescue situation because they know the breed and kind of what they bring to it, and they can really help you pick out the dog that might be good to foster. I think that's a good starting point. And then also, do you like training? So is that something that you already have that's ingrained in you? Because, you know, I don't do well with the guy that wants to sit and watch videos and movies all night. Like that's just not fun for me. And so I think about that with my dog too. You know, they don't want to just sit and do nothing. They want to go out and go hike and go kayak and go paddleboard and go train. And so that's the life that I'm going to give for that breed. So they have probably already done their research. So research the breed, consider fostering, and that kind of gives you kind of lower stakes way of seeing, does it really work for you?
I actually like that question. Do you like to train? Because I'm like my dog. You have to drag me out of the building, right? I mean, I just stop because it seems like I should. Like I will go forever. I love to train. Fortunately, then we just train new dogs. I think if you're going to get, we're pretty addicted. If you're going to train a dog or a breed, see, the thing is, that's the offset of some of the challenges of the Belgians because they have some weird shit going on, but the offset is how much they love to work. And for me, like some people, like they say to me, how do you motivate yourself to train? I'm like, what? That's what gets me out of bed in the morning. Like I don't motivate myself to train. I have to find a reason to stop training. And thank God my life is actually dog training, really. I mean, think about that. How many people get that lucky? Because my whole life is in the dog sphere and that works for me. But if you aren't driven to train, I think it might be the wrong breed. Like there's middle breeds that would probably, if you think training is nice, I enjoy my training. I enjoy doing other things. Like if training does not consume the top part of your brain somewhere, you might want to look at other breeds as well. But I will say this, if training does consume that top part of your brain, and if you get a foster and you try it out, nothing will make you happier. Because it's truly both of you looking at it going, we should stop, huh? We should stop. Yeah, but we're not gonna. No, we're not gonna. Like it's just that. That's amazing. Yeah. If you love to train, there's no rush like a dog who is so on board and pushing you. And I'm not saying it's easy because there's going to be plenty of issues. You go to the park and your dog's like, I love to train, but you know what? This bush over here, a girl peed on this one. So I'll be with you in a minute. I'm not saying you opt out of challenges. I'm just saying that the challenges don't tend to be around skill building. The dog is in the game trying really hard to figure out what you want. So I taught my little dog Burrito to do a send away. You stand on one side of a field and I wanted him to go 50 feet, not 50 yards, 50 feet across the field and sit. It took 3 years to teach him that skill. Now Zen learned that skill in 1 day. And the big difference is that Burrito's like, yeah, I'll go. And I send him and he'd go like 10 feet. And then he's like, where am I going? Oh, look. And then, so there's just a billion other things going on. Zen, I'm like, I want you to go there. He goes, you want me to go that post right there? Uh-huh. Did you want me to sit or down or stand when I get there? Like, it's just a completely different mental model. And hardcore working dogs are working very hard to understand what you want them to do. You're not meeting them in the middle. They're taking up 90% of the slack. When I got Burrito, my training skills improved quite a lot. I'm talking about the skills, the actual creating behaviors, because I had no choice. He's not going to figure things out for me. I am going to explain things in a way that makes sense, and there's no option about it. You get a dog like Zen. I have seen people train dogs like Zen, and I did not know what they were trying to teach the dog. That's pretty bad, you know? And a week later, the dog is doing the thing. That's a radical difference. Nobody watches me train Burrito and guesses about what we're learning. Like, it's pretty obvious. So it's not, I wouldn't discourage someone from getting the breed, but you just have to know why you want one. And, you know, there's lots of high energy. If you just want a running companion or whatever, there's lots of great dogs for that. I think the thing about the Belgian is that brain power is intense and amazing.
I want to go back to a previous question, because what you said is about the coaching of the human, and that right there is the huge piece, being clear. So any way that you can bring clarity to the game, that's the kindest thing you can do for both your dog and your handlers. And then for the pedigree thing too, your Malinois, if you don't know this already, French lines, really fast, twitchy, responsive, and then you got like your Dutch lines that are more like the slower burr, 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 when it
Zen
comes
is
to
Dutch.
Belgian. So it's really know your pedigrees and what you really want. So do that research too.
All right, switching the game a little bit here. So what's your favorite game to play with your dog, any dog? What keeps you going, especially in those times in the dog world, terms of, ugly and unkind? Thank you for all you do to help us learn, grow, and exist. You're amazing.
You are amazing. Good job.
Thank you. Did this one come in now or earlier?
No, this was earlier. That's why it says my name on the
It's
question.
not for you. All right,
No,
just
I know,
checking.
that's what I said.
All right,
I
just
said
checking.
You're amazing.
What is my favorite game to play with a dog? Any dog. Actually, I mean, if it's just any old random person's dog, I like dogs, so I'll call it over and just like scratch his little head. Mostly, I just am sweet with other people's dogs. The specific games I play with dogs are so specific to the dogs. Like we're playing this game with Zen where you kick a toy. It's hugely entertaining, not just for the dog. And there's a reason for this. You can put 5 toys. It's an honest contest because you can put 5 toys on the ground and you're like skulking around them and he's ready. He doesn't know which toy it's going to be. You can kick it from the back of your foot, the front of you. You can do 100 different things and you don't know who's going to win. And then you can adjust the game, right? So if you're winning too much, then you have to stop kicking from the back. You have to modify the rules so that everybody has a chance. For me, finding a game like that where the dog is all in, the dog is 100% in and just kind of, it's so entertaining that's going to be his game. Reka, the game we used to play, I'd sit on the floor and I would take a toy and I would hide it on my body somewhere. Now there's only so many spaces. I mean, it didn't matter. She didn't care. And I would hold her head up in the air and I would like stuff it under my kneecap on one side. I would sit cross-legged on the floor on the other side or whatever. And I would let her go and she would run around. She found that so entertaining. And then we'd grab the ball and we would do it again. And it just locked her in such a happy way. I think finding things that your dog finds entertaining is sort of the ticket. For some people watching their dog do nose work, the act of watching the dog think and process, that works, right? It works for the person. It works for the dog. I would just, explore. Play with the dog and just explore. And then sometimes you'll watch people doing the silliest things with their dogs and it's so obviously working. Right. So you have that game with your dog where you grab his feet.
T-Rex
feet. But they're both having a really good time.
He made the game up. I'm like, okay, this is a game we'll play.
Zen would hate that game. He would bite me. He would not like that game. But that to me is the game you play is the one the dog brings to the table. The one the dog says, this is such a great game. Let's do this one.
All right. Sophie said, have either of you trained or helped another person with an Akita, a Chow, a Shiba, or similar breed? If so, what did you learn? Find these dogs can teach you so much.
Have you worked with these breeds?
So I had Sable, and she was an Akita Chow Shar-Pei mix.
Well, I just turn this one over to you.
I mean, I don't know if that's typical because mixing all those together, but it was really interesting. She was an old farm dog by the time that I got her, and you just train them the same way as kind of a terrier in a lot of ways. Like you had to really break things down very clearly. There wasn't as much like biddable kind of interaction that I've had. I've worked with one other Akita as well, and that Akita tended to be kind of human aggressive. But that one was super athletic, so that was also a difference. What was the question?
What'd you learn?
So I learned that I had to really break things down, kind of like with my Yukon, even more so than I had with other dogs, and that I had to really build that relationship piece by understanding exactly what they enjoyed. And it felt like it was hard to find what they loved the most, and I had to really be creative about things. So I would say the thing that I learned was to really ask a lot of questions of the dog and find out exactly what it is that they love. But isn't that all dogs?
Yeah, so I've had some time to think about it. I've worked with a few Akitas. I've never worked with a Chow. I've worked with a few Shibas. I've worked with Borzoi. I've worked with Wind Sprites. And the thing that I would say all of those breeds have in common, they remind me of training a cat because the processing, everything is just sort of thoughtful. Everything. Like, do I want your cookie? Let me sniff it. Let me roll it around a little. There was much more thoughtful behavior. On the plus side, there was also a lot less, the ones I worked with, they weren't running off to check out the environment either. They just had a much more dignified approach to life. Low arousal, calm, think about things, and you may or may not be interesting to them and what your games you want to play. But they actually all did well. They all got trained and did their stuff. The Shibas weren't competition focused, but the Wind Sprite, the Borzoi, and the Akitas all did well. It's just they're not going to look like they're delighted to be there and flying around. It's a different picture. And so I had a woman who had a Wind Sprite and a Border Collie. And it was really interesting to work with her because we'd be, doing our thing. Now the Wind Sprite. Okay. Deep breath, slow down, because you just overwhelm the dog. You can't be snapping things at the dog. It doesn't work that way. And trying to jolly these dogs is a bad idea. I don't find jollying works with any breed, but it's particularly annoying to dogs who just sit, jolly them up.
What is jolly?
Cheerlead.
Oh, okay.
It's like spitting out the bones, but eating. Okay. I find that those dogs are you just overwhelm them and shut them down when you do that. You have to slow down. Like, you have to genuinely slow down.
Yeah.
Calm everything down and give them the time to process. You say sit, give them a chance to think about it. And, as Crystal said, what do they really want? Because it's so easy for us to default to food. I have a video on one of my play lectures. Don't let me run off without talking about the play conference. In one of my play lectures, and it's about a woman. It was so funny. It was in a seminar, and she's working with her Akita, and she's saying, my dog doesn't play. And I said, okay. And so I was giving her some coaching. This is on video. And so she's doing stuff, and the dog is grabbing this way and playing. And she is, as this is happening, saying, this dog doesn't play. My dog doesn't play. And the dog is doing it. And so she's still saying how the dog isn't playing, and the dog is playing. And at some point, it's such a funny video because everybody's watching it, and I'm watching it, and she keeps saying how the dog doesn't play. And it was such a disconnect between who the dog is right now while you're using the techniques that are working for this dog and who you decided the dog was at some point in the past when you were trying different techniques and different things. And it's just interesting how the brain makes a decision and doesn't necessarily recognize what's actually going on right in front of you.
But also your preconceived idea of what play is.
And this dog was actually playing tug. But yes,
they're like, it doesn't play like what I expect them to play like. They don't train the way I expect them to train. And so changing those expectations is also huge.
I'm so past the day of saying all dogs have to play with a tug, have to play ball, have to play with food. I'm like, you know what? Where do you want to go? And what is this dog showing us? How can we get from here to there? Right? What are the steps that might work? I am so done with rules. They have never served me well. They have done nothing but discourage my clients when I was using more rules. It's like, you know what? Forget all that. What do we need? If we want to get from here to there, the first thing we need your dog with a wagging tail. Let's just work on that right now. And you want to do some obedience. So we're going to need these two skills. Let's see if we can get these two things in the easiest environments, but really just let those things go as best you can, because they don't necessarily want to do it your way, the way the book said. So what's their way?
I know with my girl too, is all social play. Everything with her was social play. The food really wasn't anything. The toys really weren't anything. But she would get so excited with some social play. And that's what we used.
I've actually noticed a relationship between dogs with low food and toy drive and high social play. I've noticed that. It's almost like for some dogs, the toys and the food overwhelms their interest in social play. They're like, forget that. I would much rather do this. Whereas not that unusual to have dogs that are quite playful, that aren't that interested in toys and food.
So Katrina had this question, and Julie actually asked almost the same question just recently. So, do you find it's best to focus on one sport at a time, or can the dog kind of work on multiple sports at the same time? Julie said, do you see any issues with dogs who are doing more rather than just a couple?
Your turn. At me.
Go for it.
So in our dog club, most protection sport clubs focus on one sport, and we don't. Part of that, I think, is our ADHD. Like, it's so much fun to do this thing, but then today I want to do this thing, and so for us, it's really fun to teach multiple things. But I have seen so much how having multiple sports has helped me become a better trainer. So when I'm taking my detection stuff and putting that into my tracking for IGP, and then I'm taking what I'm learning about presentation as a decoy in Mondio Ring and applying that to my helper work in IGP, it's made me a way better trainer, and it's made my dog a lot more robust. Like, they can handle a lot more things. They can see more pictures, and I just have more tools to be able to use. So I like doing multiple sports and cross training, but I also understand that I'm a little ate up with it. And so I invest more time into doing all of these things. And I have the gift of summer breaks as a teacher. So all day I'm an art teacher, and then all night I obsess about dogs and all things dogs. And the same with the weekends. So it gives me an advantage. If I didn't have all that time to really explore everything, it'd be difficult.
I am the first, I don't know, year of my dog's life is truly single skills. Like, I spend an enormous amount of time on individual skills. I don't know how many words my dogs have, but it's a fair number. And then the next step is just combining single skills into chains. He's missing some things, but not a lot. Like, he has enough single skills, specifically around the world of obedience and protection. So even though my mental model was Mondio and always has been, it would be very simple to change him over to any of the other sports, except he wouldn't do well in the AKC environment. But if he could do well in the AKC environment, it'd be very easy to go do rally or obedience, because all those single skills just need to be tweaked slightly. But if you train that way, if you tend to train behaviors over chains as an actual learning process, you have an incredible amount of freedom. I could give somebody a plan for 18 months of training every single day with no sport in mind whatsoever. And at the 18-month mark, you could say, I want to do such and such. I said, all right, so we're going to combine your sit, your stay, your fetch, your jump. That's your retrieve over high jump. That'll get you through I could do that very easily, just because it's how I think. The more you pattern train in your sport, the harder it's going to be to cross sports, to cross train.
Yeah, so I like what you're saying there. It's just training the foundations, because that goes back to, I didn't even know that the PDC, which is a PSA sport, I didn't even know that was in town. And so a month before I found out, I read the rule book. It had 2 sessions to train, like the part where it's carjacking, and 2 sessions because of all the other foundations I had put. He's like, oh, that's all I got to do? Cool. I can do that. I can bark. You've taught me that. Bark at the bad guy. You've taught me that when I'm biting and you say out, to let go. So, I mean, he had all the behaviors. So that's where I think, like Elizabeth had asked about, I always ask my people, like, what do you want to train for? Are you interested in Mondio or IGP? Because there are slightly different things that I want to put in the foundations to help them out in the future. But if they say, I don't know, then I take that as information too. That I'm going to teach you all of those things so that when you are ready, you can go into it easily.
So we are just about at the hour mark. So I'm going to ask a play conference thing, and then we can keep going if you guys are both good to keep going. But I wanted to make sure you said make sure we talk about the play conference.
This is the commercial break. All right, we're going to do our commercial break. Guys, come and join us for the play conference. Way fun. Crystal's going to be teaching. What are you teaching? Give your synopsis. I was like, you just spent 100 hours on it. You should know it.
Play as behavior and finding out what it is that your dog actually enjoys, thinking about their instinctual desires. And then I talk about flirt pull. I talk about some play diagnostics things, like if your dog is going for handles. I kind of think it's good. I put a lot in there, like a lot.
She also, because she's an art teacher and a little bit obsessive about that, it's not like the rest of us. Like the rest of us show you a video and we chatter at you and we show you. No. Hers have things coming in from the side and words to remember coming in layers upon layers.
Okay. Now, to be fair, usually I make it more entertaining. This one, it's me doing live demo kind of things with like B-roll put on top of it and some other stuff. And I'm also going to include, I took a picture of all of my toys and I'm going through and I'm finding links to all of those things. And I'm going to include that as well. So that in itself is kind of a cool deal.
And we have 2 conference panel talks, which are very interesting. I don't remember the overall topics, but I remember the questions because we were, discussing them.
Those, yeah.
And I think people will get a lot out of the panel conversations in addition to the presentations. And it's not just about toy play. It's just in general, social play. Why do we play with dogs? How can you use that in behavior work? How can you improve your technique, your actual what you're doing? Because that actually matters more than maybe we talk about enough, especially around toys. It does matter that you're a bunny and not a suicidal bunny. Like there's little things that kind of do matter. Hope to see you guys. $89, good price. You can get a scholarship. If you're struggling, get a scholarship. Makes it half price and we don't really ask you questions. So you just ask for it pretty much.
The panel topics are building better play and play is communication. Those are our panel topics. So and yes, Claire, I can absolutely put a registration link in the chat box. That is definitely something I can do.
And Melissa, can you also put the scholarship link in there?
Yeah, I can do that.
All right.
So
all right, back to our regularly scheduled programming.
And let me grab the scholarship link really quick. So I will put the scholarship link in just a second, guys. I'm going to read Lisa's question. So Lisa said, for the Play One Day conference, will any of the presenters address how to determine what motivates the dog to play or figuring out their play style?
My whole thing does. And I'm sure everybody else has parts of it in there as well. But that's the focus of mine, really.
Awesome. I think Sharon also has a class coming up on this in August. So if this is something that's like really top of mind for you, you may want to look at the class in August as well.
It looks so amazing.
Yeah, I was talking to her about it. It's pretty exciting. I don't have a dog that fits the criteria for the class, and yet I still kind of want to take it because it just should be really interesting stuff.
All trainers, it looked like, should take it.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
just for learning.
Yeah.
All right. So back to our other question. You guys are both good to keep going, right? We don't have a hard. Okay. AJ says, have you decided what behavior you want to use on walks when people approaching is the cue? What considerations are you making to help you decide on a behavior?
So you're asking me personally? Is this one that came in now?
Yeah, it came in live.
Okay. So I asked my dog just for simplicity, I just move out of the way if that's ever a possibility. But let's say it's not. I asked my dog to come to contact so that he won't scare anybody or go forward to see them, or they won't call him to them. So that's mine, is come to my side. I could also have my dog come to the middle if I had a concern, but I have no qualms about walking out in the middle of the street. If somebody's coming with children are unpredictable. I don't know what they're going to do. So I don't rely on my dog's behaviors. I don't, even with Brito, I get out of the way. I move. So that's what I use.
Crystal, do you have any?
What is the cue for what?
The person approaching is the cue. Frankly, it's me who gets cued. So I see a person approaching and I am cued to ask my dog to do a thing. The thing I ask for is generally come to my side.
So, I mean, I've done a lot of hiking and the trails are pretty narrow. And so I'm always practicing when someone's coming, I make sure they're authorized. So I let my dog know, I'm like, hey, have a nice day. It's a great day to go hiking. And so that little bit of interaction is enough that my dogs understand that, oh, they're good. We're cool. So that's something that I've kind of taught on the side. I've taught let's go, which is like forward, drive forward. Those are all helpful things like on hiking trails. So it just depends on, I guess, where you're walking and what you need. And if your dog is like reactive of wanting to like bite people, or it just depends on what your dog already is. Like Radish just wants to say hi. And so with her, I will either say hi if the person wants to say hello and she does the big grin and all the things, or I'll just say, let's go. And then she puts her head down and pushes forward. Is that okay?
Lisa wanted to know if we've ever had anybody do anything on T-Touch for FDSA.
I thought we did.
I think Lori Stevens did something a while ago.
back in the day. But if
you've had anybody do anything recently,
yeah.
You can certainly drop a note to the help desk, Lisa, and we do pay attention to things like that. So
yeah, we do.
All right. So Cynthia says, how do you deal with a dog who won't take treats during training? Some are olive, trying for lower stress, giving up on food for the moment, use toys to train, working on training the dog to eat in different situations, locations, just kind of all those pieces.
That's you.
Dog that won't take treats. Okay. Why?
Just won't take treats during training.
Well,
so these are like some of the things they looked at trying.
Okay, so they try for lower stress, give up on food.
For the moment or forever.
When they've tried working on training, eat in
Use
different
toys.
situations. Yep. So will they play? I guess that's what I'm curious. Is this somebody that's here now?
So Cynthia, I think is here now. I don't know if they're still here. Cynthia, if you want to clarify, we'll come back to it. So Cynthia, give us a little more information about your situation. I'll put it up next. I'm going to go on to Savannah's question, and then I'll come back.
Okay.
Savannah says, I know this will have some nuance depending on the dog, but where do you generally like to start trialing dogs? Is waiting until they're an adult a better move, especially if you have a teenager with some issues with over-arousal?
I'm kind of passionate about that topic. I think the vast majority of people compete way too soon, and I think you can create issues that are so single incident learning because they're so contextual. So the dog is feeling a little bit of stress, but hey, they're trained, so they stay in the game with you. And then the next thing that happens is they get no reinforcement or interaction from you for some period of time. Maybe they find ways to self-reward depending on the sport. Maybe they're shut down and scared and you continue. I hate the trial experience phrase, unless you are sure that the dog will have a good time. So some agility dogs find the sport itself so reinforcing that I think trial experience is what some dogs need. They just need to know that, oh, we're going to do the same thing here that we do at home. But when you're talking about sports that don't look the same in a trial as they do in training, like obedience, I hope you're not doing your obedience the same, like with no reinforcement and, quiet. And I'm not a fan. I like to show my dog when I'm at the point that I am, and this is my expression, downright surprised when my dog fails an exercise. That is my whoa, did not see that coming. Because if I am downright surprised in training when my dog fails, there's a really good chance they're still going to fail in a trial. The difference is it's now a trial. But I mean, I'm looking for 95+% accuracy. I'm not talking about the little details. I'm talking big picture here. The things that matter. That when I send my dog to bite someone and I say, come back, and the dog does not come back, I am downright surprised. I want all of that stuff off the table. And I just find that most people think that what they get in their backyard is going to somehow relate to what they get in the ring. And there's so much in between what you're getting in your backyard and what you're getting in the ring. There's so many steps in there. And I think people are often taken off guard by how much their dog struggles when they go to a more complex situation. So I'm slow. And I almost look for excuses not to compete. Oh, yep. Didn't expect that. Oh, because here's the thing. Let's say you start your dog at 2. And this is a real example. Kisu, my first obedience champion Belgian, started her obedience career at the age of 2 and finished when she was, I think, 9. She finished her title, her championship. So that was 7 years. Reika, I went to one show when she was 2. She had a first-class meltdown in the ring, scared the shit out of me, and I didn't go back for 2 more years. So she started her career when she was 4. And she finished when she was 6 or 7, the same title. So the difference is she just was much more ready, much more prepared, and she was able to go straight through. The first dog started out gangbusters, but did not have the proper preparation. And so I ended up having to redo it anyway. The first dog got her first title and 2 weeks later started on her second title. So she knew it all. She just kind of zooming on forward. Zen is being trained for his Mondio Ring 3. We're working on skills for the 2 and the 3. I feel pretty good about the skills for his 1. By the time he trials for his 1, there's, I don't know, maybe 7 exercises. In a 3, there's 27. By the time he gets to that 1, it should be damn, we're done. That was all we have to do. So I just think that there's no downside. And then theoretically, he would go right on. You do your 1. I'm not saying he's going to pass right away. I'm just saying you get out there, you find the holes. But then he should be ready for his 2 pretty quickly. He should be ready. So unless you're just bound and determined to compete, I don't see a benefit. I do see a benefit to always moving forward. You should know what you're working on. You should be training for it. You should be progressing. I'm not talking about spinning your wheels, but the actual going to competitions with all of the additional stress and all, I'm really slow. I would say the number one thing people want to talk to me about at seminars, it always starts out the same. I want to talk to you. Okay. At home, as soon as I hear that, I know where we're going. My dog can't do it in competition. I walk in and falls apart, and I've been at it and it's getting worse. And I hear that it is the number one thing people talk to me about. And that's a lot of information. And very often they say, I knew I started too early. I wanted her to get experience in the ring, and it's just gotten worse. She's not getting better. And so anyway, that's my thought on that.
I do think there's something about it. At some point you have to pull the trigger. You have to go try a trial and see what you've really got. But yeah, a lot of people just keep going from that point.
There's nuance on the dog, and there's also nuance on the handler, and also nuance of the sport. So those, like you mentioned, the agility, I feel like that's a different kind of thing. And like barn hunt is a different kind of thing. So it depends on
nose work. Those sports, you can bring your reinforcers in and you can help the dog. If things are getting grim, the dog doesn't have to know they failed. And also sports that you do on your own field. If you do IGP and you're in a club and your club hosts a trial, so your dog's going to compete on their own field with their own decoy, that is a very different experience for the dog than going to a new club, new decoys, the pressure. Like, it's not that it's nothing. It is something. It's just the danger is much less than taking your dog to a place where there's all new people, all new dogs. They're already uncomfortable there. And now asking them to perform. It's a big difference.
And there's some people and some dogs that love to compete. Like they just love to show up and show off. Like I love competition, and I haven't had a chance to do it in a very long time with kind of broken dogs. And I know that like my dog Checkmate and my dog, previous dog Quinn, they love to be in front of people, and they enjoy that. Whereas like my dog Yukon absolutely would hate that. So again, nuance of the dog, like you said.
Yeah. So to go back to Cynthia, shared, he is more likely to play than to eat, but no tugging, and will turn away from fur toys that are normally quite interesting. He's a sight hound. He stresses down.
Okay. That's important information there. The sight hound that stresses down. So there you're just needing to get safety. You need to get comfort. You've overfaced the dog. And so it's a matter of bringing that safety back to be able to do those things. When they can eat normally and they can do all those things in other places, then it's a matter of the behavior stuff there. Go ahead.
No, it's okay to go to a new place. Like you would love Amy Cook's stuff. Sit on the floor and be with your dog until your dog can be with you in a normal fashion. But absolutely be with them. Sit with them. Let them sit with you. And yeah, get them to a place of don't ask for anything. Relaxing, watching. Some breeds can't watch, but I think a sight hound probably can. Some breeds, if they watch, they just get crazy and it's bad. But some breeds collect information by watching. So if they need to sit with you quietly at a nice big distance, I think that's how I would go about it.
Sophia says, my dog reacts to the trash truck. It runs randomly hours, often late evenings, 3 times a week, and circles the block around the house 2 to 3 times a night because of the route. Body language of fear aggression. What do you do in situations where you just can't control the trigger?
Can you cover the windows?
Yeah. I was thinking the window clings.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
The window film. I did that for the cat because we have an outdoor cat. And that cat would come up to the windows and just all hell would break loose. And I really didn't want my new dogs to learn that because Brita started. I tell you, that day I put up the window film, all I can say is, why didn't I do it 10 years earlier? You may also have a sound element. I don't know if it's just sound or sight. If there's both, if you can possibly block the sight, you can always take the window cling down. I've been saying that for 5 years. I'd like to point out it's still there. But anyway, you can take it down. You can work on something like look at Amy Cook stuff on sound parties. The worry I have for you is the sheer quantity of it. It comes back to that thing I was saying earlier. How much can you train? You could teach your dog that the sound of the garbage truck is the cue to run to their crate. And when they're in their crate, you give them treats. And then you just sort of fade that over time.
I would expect if it's a sound elements, Amy stuff would probably work really well for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Might be a good place to start at least.
A similar thing that I had was just the dogs walking because it's a really like busy kind of neighborhood with the sidewalk across the street. And every single dog going by that had the, the tag, clinking was just it was a challenge. So I just made one of the wind chimes and did all the dog tags from the wind chime.
Oh, that's smart.
And that helped out so much. Just
that's great.
Always having that sound going. Then it wasn't just like, oh, only when I hear it. It just wasn't as big of a deal. So I don't know how you would do that.
Record it.
But I was wondering about, like YouTube videos and things like that. So that it's not, if it's a sound thing, I don't know, just.
And then you get to live in a house where hours a day you're listening to a YouTube video of the garbage truck.
Everybody's going live.
Can't wait to show up for a visit.
Yeah.
For the nice candles and the trash truck sounds.
Yeah.
We had a few people interested in this topic. So any tips for pre-trial ring entry? I'm trying to build a little routine, but not sure what I should be focusing on, how I should be training it.
It's probably the biggest issue I see is that people overhandle their dogs. So they come up to the ring and they give their dog 30 cues in 45 seconds, look up at the ring, and they still have 7 minutes to go. And they absolutely wear their dogs out. So in practice, away from trial, is where you need to figure out really how much time does your dog need to get out of the crate, go to the bathroom while you're breathing. Focus on yourself. Like that's half the battle.
That's what I was going to say.
Get that worked out. Let's say you're doing obedience and let's say the routine is 7 minutes. You need to know like roughly when the dog before you starts the off-leash healing pattern or something like that. That should trigger you to go into your routine. But just be aware that most handlers that I observe start it way too soon and they have their dogs out way too much. Let your dog acclimate a lot from the crate. Early in the day is when you want to walk around, you look at the thing, and then put the dog in a crate, cover it first, and then you can uncover them if that's good for your dog. And then start your routine. I used to do something, you can look it up on my blog. I can't remember. It's squishing. Look up squish, SQUISHING. If you search squish, it should come up. It's basically where I teach the dog to wait between my legs quietly. And then when I step back, they turn around, whip back towards me, and we play. And what it does, it's kind of a waiting space. So I'm not giving them a lot of cues. I'm not being hyper. I'm watching the ring. I'm calm. And then every, 20, 30 seconds, I bring the dog out and I play with them for a sec, back into their space. That gives them in a frame of mind, which is anticipatory waiting. With Zen, I didn't teach him that. With him, I will use contact heel. And our warm-up routine is really simply existing in the environment with very little feedback. He's looking around, he's leaning on me, I'm with him because I just find that it's so easy to get into the rapid fire, sit, down, front, heel, wrap. And people just do this thing and they speed everything up a lot more than they normally do. Like it's intense to watch and it stresses the dog. And then the dog makes an error and now they lose their shit because they're like, oh my God, he's not coming to front anymore. And so then they just make every bad decision in the book right before they're going to go in the ring. So I'm at the point where I am thinking more calm waiting, less doing. But what are your thoughts on this?
That's exactly what I do. I do backpack, gun dog kind of thing where it's you lean on one knee. And so then the dog is right there and you're both just watching. And so backpack because like you look like a backpack to your dog. But I just have my hand on her chest. I did a really good job of this with Radish, just knowing we'd have a lot of downtime, like waiting for law enforcement and waiting for people to talk. We just got to sit there and just wait. And there's so much going on. There's so much activity with that. And I realize it's not a ring entry, but it's the same concept. And that's been wonderful. Just relax because that's what I need to do for myself too. I need to relax. And I just need to be able to just watch and take in the environment and not have to be so worried and stressed about things.
Do investigate if you haven't Laura Wadby's stuff. She does a great job teaching you the exact way to make walking through the ring gates, for example, super positive for your dog, managing your emotions. There's a lot of things, but those things take place after the waiting. So I like my waiting to be as calm and quiet while I work on being calm and breathing calmly and a hand quietly on my dog. But once we get in that ring, then we're moving. Things are happening. So I teach that. But the rest is much quieter.
I put the link to the squishing blog post in the chat. And I'm going to stick a link to Laura has a free Facebook group for ring confidence stuff. And she talks about a lot of the pre-trial ring entry stuff in that group. And it's free. So hop over there and take a look at that.
What a deal.
She's amazing.
All right. Catherine says, how do you bring down arousal levels?
I like to pray.
I don't know if you. I immediately smiled and looked because I was waiting.
I pray to all the gods, not just one, because I think if I just keep praying, God, it's hard. It's so hard. I have
So,
like
great example.
50 strategies.
Yeah, but it's
I mean,
so specific to the dog and what you're working on.
It is so specific. Broad strokes here. Some of the things that help. How much exercise does your dog benefit from? More or less? How about rhythm? Most dogs, if you can find a rhythmic, I use rhythmic heeling, big right circles. Many dogs will settle with rhythmic heeling. But wait, there's more, because then they're the dogs that need to just lay down and not move. So you got to figure out, do you have a lay down and not move dog? Or do you have a rhythmic movement dog that somehow you incorporate yourself? Short little tricks. Some dogs that really sucks them in because of the high rate of reinforcement. Other dogs, the high rate of reinforcement just means snagging a cookie and back, Some dogs hype up when you're using a lot of food or toys, right? The more the quick outs, the worse they get. Other dogs, it focuses them. Some dogs like Zen, if I hand them a toy to just hold and massage, calms them down a lot. But I have to think about how and where I'm using that because I can't necessarily do that in competition. But for him, that works very well. Another one is just physical complexity. I taught him to sit pretty. It's very hard for him. So when he's in a high state of arousal, he has to fight with himself because he knows what I'm asking him to do. But he has to concentrate to succeed because it's just hard for him. And so I taught it, of course, out of arousal. And now I add things like picking things off the ground. He wants to watch me, but he can't because he has to keep up. Like he can watch with his head. Things that split their brain can be very helpful for dogs who are anticipatory arousal. They want to go forward. They're excited about going forward. But not all dogs are showing that kind of focused, I want that one thing, I know exactly what I want kind of arousal. If it's more generic arousal, you might find that splitting their brain makes them worse because that's one more thing to be scattered. That dog might be better off with the downstay. So it's an enormous process of exploration. I have also noticed with my dog, the sheer quantity of work helps him a lot. It just, to really have a clear brain, when he sees he's going to do protection and he hasn't done it for a month, it's such a big ask for him. So those are some thoughts I have.
I'll add clarity. If you can bring clarity to your training, that's probably the number one thing that I found, because a lot of the arousal issues are often kind of frustration stuff and just not knowing what's next. So bringing some clarity and helping them understand what to expect, that seems to really help.
Katrina wants to know, do you train Burrito with food any less than you do Zen due to the smaller size and calorie restrictions? If so, what reward do you use on a zero toy motivation dog? Asking as a small dog owner that always has to manage calorie restrictions compared to our larger training partners.
Yeah, it's a huge issue. And I train Burrito 90% with food. I do a little bit of ball, a little bit of tug, but really food for skill acquisition in particular. It is a problem. If I'm seriously training him, like really working with him every day, I use his kibble, and he's a raw fed dog, but not when he's training. Then he's using kibble. Here I'm using cheese sticks, little pieces, but he's also spending hours a day running around hunting for mice. So he's exercising a lot more than he usually does. So that's helping me.
He's working so hard.
He's working hard all the time. So he's actually thinner than he's ever been. It's like, wow, this is so gratifying. So he can have more food. It is a challenge. So you know what? You're going to make the most of every morsel, right? And you're just limited. You can only go for so long. The pieces are small, but you're going to throw them. You're going to do fun things with them. You're going to have to kind of push your rate of reinforcement down because you have no choice, which is kind of unfortunate. It's a problem. I don't train Zen with food at all. And that dog eats so much food, is ridiculous. So boy, what are you going to do? Right? I mean, the wrong dog got the wrong thing. If you can use your dog's meals, that's your best bet. And if it's just kibble and your dog's not thrilled about it, you can season it with, throw in a few pieces of dried up hot dog and mix it in. That does help. But those are my thoughts. I feel you because it's a challenge.
Luis has a question that we'll see. So how do you convince a man to not train his dog with the voice of a jail officer talking to a reluctant prisoner?
To affirm his superiority. Wow. Oh, I have to think about this. My personal approach to traditional trainers is humor. So I will start with things like, your dog's only 3 feet away. I can hear you across the room. You can take the volume down a little. Like, it's a joke and I'm light about it, but it makes a point. Like, easy. Yeah, just take that one down a little. There you go. That's much better. Let's try your indoor voice. That's kind of the route I go. Eventually they either leave or they get used to me and they figure it out. And usually then they're laughing. Like, so then they'll do it. And they'll be like, and I'm like, that's a good start. Like, awareness is good. You don't need to yell. Your dog's right there. Your dog wants to work with you. So I don't worry too much about the superiority thing. That's not my job. It's not my job. My job is to be as connected to the team as I can, to the owner, regardless of where they start, and to help them move forward with their dog. To do that, I need your dog on your team. To do that, I need your dog to want to be with you. And these are all things that I'm very comfortable saying. See, in my opinion, anything that should be said can be said. Now, there's some things you shouldn't say to anybody ever, right? But if I really need to say something to you, because it matters, if I spend some time on it, I can find a way to say it to you, which is kind, because it comes from a good place. That's why I'm saying it to you, or I wouldn't be saying it. But sometimes, you get a lot of practice with this on the internet, right? Like, the first things that come out your fingertips, you got to suck them back in. But if you take a minute, you will discover that you really can say anything. You just have to take the tone out. And you have to take the assumptions out, because every time I make an assumption about somebody's attitude towards me, I get it wrong. It's the most frustrating thing. I'm sure they're just being mean, right? Why is your dog walking with his head all cranked up like that? That looks so uncomfortable. And I'm like, because I'm a horrible human being and I want him to suffer. No, I don't actually say that, but it's very tempting. And so as I'm sitting around stewing about this, somebody else will come in and say, the dog was conditioned to do that over years. And you know what the person's response is? Oh, thank you. I didn't know that. And then I'm like, oh, damn. Right. So that happens to me enough that, one, I really try to take things at face value. Right? Maybe that person's yelling at their dog simply because somewhere along they learned that you're supposed to yell with authority to get things done. And they just need someone to say, hey, you know what? Dogs have amazingly good hearing. Your dog's 3 feet away. You can talk really quiet. And the side effect, the advantage you're going to find is that when you're quieter, they have to listen. So you're going to get a little more attention. So let's give that a shot. And that's about how I do it.
So I do this with dog training for all my stuff. You can do a like, wish, wonder. So you can also start off by saying something that you like about the person. And, I really wish that in this scenario, that actually I probably started my wonder on that one. I wonder what would happen if you said that a little quieter. Let's try that. Let's see what that sounds like. Let's see what the response is. And then you can say, like, I wish that, and you can kind of put something in there too. But I like to say wonder about things because it's always a question mark then. And it gives the other person the possibility to kind of then go, I wonder that too. Or why are you wondering that? It kind of opens up communication, and just saying, stop doing that or start doing this. Just, I wonder if.
I like that.
What if?
I like that.
All right. Kim said, a dog that's been trained, but the human has lapsed woefully. How to reboot training, issues of overarousal, go to small in-person class, ? Work on your own, ? Where'd you start?
I don't know. What do you want? What do you like to do? Dog doesn't care. So if you like being around people and you want to be in a class, head to the class. If you really want to work, you just want to teach skills, do that. I know Crystal's dog has had a lot of injuries, a couple of hip replacements, breaks body parts, whatever. Now he's looking good. And it's, so we sort of convinced her to get back into the IGP route. And the first question was, where do we start? You've got a 7-year-old dog that has bits and pieces and millions. And I said, what did I say? I think
He's
I said
been retired 2 years.
Yeah. So where do you start? So where did you start?
Well, you said be a baby dog. And then we kind of did that for a minute. And then it was like, yeah, this is more fun to train the stuff we like.
So if
but it's find the holes and then start having fun with that, and think about it as you're not fixing anything. You're now teaching things. I think that's a huge mental shift for me, because I look at it and go, there's so much to teach at first. But my attitude is way different when I start thinking, ooh, I get to teach these things. It's not that I'm fixing stuff that he already knows, but now I get to teach these things because I'm teaching him now in a new way. So I think that's also helpful for my mental ability.
And I know when we talked it through, I'm like, you know what? Maybe what we could do is focus on big picture. What do you need to pass? Once you've got that, now go back and decide which pieces you would like to improve, which is not normally how we do it. Normally we take all the time in the world to build up all the pieces. But when you're talking about an older dog, especially if you want to compete, it's not realistic to have every single piece perfectly, because you'll just get frustrated as you know that time is going by. So in that case, it's like, well, what's the big picture here? What do I actually really need? And then go back and say, where could I get some additional points? If I could clean that healing up, how much would that give me? If I could clean that sit of motion, like sit out of motion, how many points do you lose for slow dog? How many points do you lose for the wrong position? You lose way more for the wrong position. So take the slow, get the position right. Like you start strategizing a little bit and
read the rule book, know the points.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And I don't know if you're looking at competing or whatever, but if you just want to have fun with your dog, I would ask what's entertaining for you, and then do what you like to do. Your dog will come along for the ride and be happy for it.
Michelle says, have you considered offering BH training concepts? I visit Germany regularly and find that dogs who belong to a dog sports club and must complete their BH training certification it's much more comprehensive than CGC.
It's a lot of healing.
You're right, though. I mean, the BH, if a dog can pass the BH, it's got a lot of training on it. That's a real title. That's a lot of
class to teach.
It's a lot of skills. Yeah. That could be a class for sure. Maybe Crystal should offer one. Maybe Crystal should retire from her day job. I'm just going to say this.
And just move to the ranch full time. I know that's what you're working on.
No moving, but
FDSA, she could teach a class on BH fundamentals. Yeah.
If there's enough people who want to do it, I'd do it.
Yep. There you go.
Alyssa says, when I recall my dog, he always checks around why I'm recalling him before he comes back, even though I made a point of not recalling only when there were dogs or people, etc. when training it. I don't know what mistake I made. Do you have any advice on how I can fix it?
But you may not have made a mistake at all. He just may be a single incident learner. Like if you called him 5 times and once was a dog, variable reinforcement's a thing. So if he looked around and one time out of 5 there was a dog, it reinforces his choice to look around. Does that make sense? So I don't know. How would I fix that?
That's a fun one.
Maybe try changing it. So instead of doing a recall, teach
collar.
your dog. Yeah, that would work. You can change your words. She uses collar to bring the dog back. But I would wonder what would happen if you said down, not when dogs are around. I'm just saying taught your dog a down from a distance and then come. I wonder if the change would eliminate that. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking, I mean, if this was mine, I enjoy teaching a collar give. So just my hand out like this and I say collar, and it doesn't even matter if they have a collar on or not, but they slam their neck into my hand. And so it's a recall. But it'd be a different kind of recall. So that might be a fun way to kind of play with that.
Sam asks, what would you consider good training criteria to work towards for dog-cat interactions where both parties want the interaction?
I'm not qualified to answer that. I have no experience with that.
You get it. Mine's limited. So
how's that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Fair enough.
Scares me.
Yeah.
Rachel says, when you said social play, is that referring to human or other dogs?
I meant human.
These are quick.
If I meant dogs, I would probably just say playing with other dogs.
Yeah, same.
Sophie says, I have a 4-year-old lab that was once confident, but over the last 2 years has developed a severe fear of slippery floors. She races from carpet to carpet and squeals when she has to cross hardwood. She won't cross without me walking with her. Any advice?
Oh man, that's
so
a
Radish,
hard one.
Radish is terrified of shiny, slick floors. And it was a visual thing for her. Luckily, mine was when she was a puppy that I discovered this straight away. And all I did, because she was a puppy, this is not going to be helpful in this moment, but just thoughts. So I would pick her up at shiny surfaces and we would just walk, like I would just carry her. And she was totally fine with that. So she was very comfortable doing that. And it helped her kind of gain confidence. Accidentally, I had odor set up that was slightly past where the flooring was safe for her. And she decided to persevere over the shiny surface to go to the odor. And I was like, whoa, party on. So it's building some of that, using things that they already love to kind of build that confidence. Now, I wouldn't just start with that by any means. So we took a lot of time to build that. When something like this, where you say the dog was already confident and now they're not, what she had to learn, and the reason I brought that up, was she had to learn that not to use your nails on the shiny floors.
Right.
Because when I walk with nails, that's when I slip more. But when I'm scared, I stick my nails out. So that's when I had to get surfaces. And I put like, what did I use? Was it like aloe? It was something that just made her pads a little bit tacky. And she learned very quickly then, oh, if I do this, then I can walk and it's not as scary. So if there's creative ways that you can think of, that you can have maybe surfaces that aren't like shiny, but they may have like a slick tendency to them, and give them the confidence that they can move on that because you've changed their feet. But also it's going to be about building the confidence, of not going and getting scared and doing the nail thing. What do you think?
The only thing I could think is you really don't want any rehearsal. So I had a dog who went through a phase of that, and I carpeted absolutely everything, like just throw stuff down so that he could get through the house. But he developed it kind of out of nowhere, and then it went away out of nowhere. So maybe a little different. And if you did that so the dog could get everywhere with little carpet squares or whatever, you might want to put treats, kind of what she was saying, outside the carpet. So the dog doesn't have to leave the carpet, but just 6 inches off, just a little bit around. So if the dog does feel brave on any given occasion, she can come and get a little kibble over here and just hop back on. So maybe super slow form of desensitization, like she's saying. It's tough if you've got 2 years of it. It's an interesting problem. And in my breed, it's fairly common, and it seems to be highly genetic. So they actually make a joke about it. They call it the linoleum floor gene. And it may be related to early takeoff syndrome in agility dogs, which is that they think it's a depth perception issue. And so it looks different to them, and they have a really bad time with it. So, there could be a medical thing as part of it. I don't know. I don't know to what extent it's being studied or to what extent they know, but it definitely has an inherited component, for some dogs.
Yeah, and something I saw with her is just when we turned the lights down and closed the blinds, then the floor itself wasn't so shiny. And just that visual of it made it easier for her. So that was some of the things that I also did to help. So just getting on their level and try to see what they see. And that might also help you make some plans.
Julie said, what would you use as an indicator of whether a dog actually likes a sport or not, even though the dog has been very successful in it?
I would ask why you're asking the question. Do you have a concern? I don't know how to ask this, but does it matter? So before you flip out,
I'm glad you went there.
I'm going to go there because I think this is important.
Yeah, it is.
Dog sports are about you and the dog, right? About both of you and whatever comes with that, the peripherals that come with that. If my dog is okay with the sport, that's all I need. Now, the thing is, if they were only okay with training, that would become problematic for me. Like if my training time with the dog did not make my dog happy, then I'd be like, why are we doing this? But I have never owned a dog that I would say enjoyed competition, but I wouldn't say they disliked it. I just wouldn't say they liked it. It's like going to the bank. I have to go to the bank to get the money. It annoys me a little bit. It's not a big deal, but I like the money. So I go to the bank, right? And I get the money. I'm okay with my dog not loving competition. So I guess what I'm wondering is, are you having questions about whether or not your dog even wants to play the game? And that, I think that could get, like, if you pay attention, does your dog come to you when you put the collar and the leash or the harness? Does your dog want to get in the car to come? And when they're in the car, do they look happy? When you get to the building, do they want to go in the building? All of that, I don't need the dog to be flipping itself inside out around the trialing thing. Now, my standards for dog loving to work are very high, very, very high, because of the sports I do, because of how much I love to work, but not for competition. For competition, the question is, are you okay with this? Not, do you like this? The number of dogs that like to compete is exceptionally small, much smaller than most people will admit. Even in sports like agility, where they love the training with the food and the toys and the low stress, many of those dogs do not like to compete. So maybe ask yourself, what do you need to see before you feel like you're being unfair to your dog? When my dogs retire from dog sports, I have a hard time staying motivated myself to just train routinely because I have no focal point. And that's really unfortunate. And I have to find ways to spend training time because it's not fair to my dog to not train them because they like to train so much. So do you see how there's trade-offs here and that it doesn't have to be all about your dog? Those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts?
I think that competition for you is like going to the bank. You love training so much that that's your reward, but the going to the bank is the competing part. Whereas I love to compete, so it's just I just found that interesting.
Yeah, I don't enjoy competition. I compete because I need to see how my training is doing. That's not my driver. But I'll tell you, you have to do it or you'll think you're all that. You really will. Because it's like you have to compete. You have to put your training to the test.
Yeah.
Or you think you have something you don't have. But I don't like going. I don't do it for fun. But yet I train, and so
it's your way of testing the success of your training. So it's exactly the same what you're saying that the dog feels, and then yeah.
But I still do it.
That was kind of fun.
So those are my thoughts.
This is a personal Denise question. So why is Zen not meant for AKC work, or is it your personal choice?
Well, I love my dog up, down, around center, but he's an asshole, so Zen has a lot of rules about how the rest of the world should engage with him. So, for example, you shouldn't be crowding his space. He doesn't like that. He's allowed to go up to you, but you're not allowed to go up to him. If he wants you to play with his toy and you say no, he might get irritable. He'll pick up things and bring them to you, and that could be just downright scary under certain circumstances. I would have to manage him and his interactions hard. He does not like strangers touching him. So right off the bat, in AKC events, you have a judge, if you want to do obedience, that touches him. He could do agility. He'd be fine with that. I would find it kind of exhausting because he's just a big, strong dog. But he'd be fine with me in agility. He's fine with dogs. Yeah, I guess if I really wanted to do AKC agility, I could do that. Really, what's in my head is AKC obedience. That's where he would have a hard time because the judge is somebody you don't know who stands very close and he has nothing else to focus on. Like, I'm not worried about judges in general, like in protection, because he's doing things. He's on the field working. He doesn't have a problem with people being around. He just doesn't really want them to interact. And if he tells them they need to back up, he expects them to listen. So I would, I'm very, very conservative about my dogs, extremely, maybe unnecessarily conservative. So I tend to see worst case scenarios, and I don't want to put myself or my dog in any possible worst case scenario. Now, having said all that, he has been taught, and I will continue to work on it, a Stanford exam from a stranger. So I have people like, I haven't done it with Crystal, but I will have people come up and there's rules because I just think it's, the more he has these experiences, the better off he's going to be. Maybe he'll, he does actually like people scratching him. He doesn't want you to touch him, but he really likes it when you pet him. So you work that out. That's, I don't know what to say. That's how he is. He wants the attention, but don't pay attention to him. It's complicated. I think in his own brain, he's a very confused dog. And because he is such a big, strong, powerful, and vaguely angry boy, I don't want to take a dog who has any arousal or anger issues into a situation where if he gets disturbed, he might do something scary. Do I think he would bite? I do not.
No.
But the thing is, I don't need him growling at people. I don't need him staring. I don't want to put him in that situation. I don't myself, and I don't want to put strangers in that situation. And so I don't think all dogs have to do all things. I think his whole package of who he is very well suited to big open field sports. He is very well suited to the protection sports. He is very well suited to being my personal friend. That sounds weird, but man, that dog has my back and he's always with me. And that's who he is. That's what he does well. So why push through to add something that's not really amenable to who he is and is not that important to me at this time? So I think about this a lot because I wish he was social. It would make life so much easier. And frankly, he has a lot to offer the Tervuren gene pool. He has a lot of fantastic qualities. But for me, that lack of sociability that's a hard one. That's a really hard one. It makes dogs so difficult in life. And then I say to myself, in fairness, how many dogs do you know that have all the great qualities he has? That clear head, that hard work ethic. How many dogs have all that he brings to the table? And, he lets the grandchildren pull his ears, right? And when I have these conversations with myself, it really helps me because when I get a little sad that I can't just, like a burrito, I can let people interact, and it's fun. I like watching people interact with my dogs. I enjoy that. But then I just think about how he reacted that one day I had a vaguely scary incident where I got confused, and I thought maybe somebody meant me harm. And the way he stood at my side, never moved, and let out a very clear, low growl. You know what? I go back to that and I say, a dog is a package deal. And he is just uber self-confident. And there's a lot of great things that come with that. He's not going to make a mistake. He's not going to go attack somebody for no reason. He's not going to go to the defense, but he's going to stand his ground and say, you do not want to come here. That's all he has to say. That's not a good dog for an AKC environment. It's just not. An AKC environment is for sporty, happy, friendly dogs. And other people have the right to assume that. If they walk past me on a narrow thing and they brush into my dog, or they just, even friendly, just kind of pet his head on the way past, that should be okay. And I don't feel like I need to take him into those environments. So that's probably a more detailed answer than you want, but I've thought about it a lot. So I gave you a thorough answer.
Thanks for not petting me. I appreciate that.
I was so close.
I know you were.
Evaluating puppies, guys. So what do you look for in evaluating a puppy for tugging or ball chasing interest at 7 or 9 weeks? Those are qualities I'm looking for in an adult, of course, a Rottweiler. Of course, the breeder will ultimately choose, but what might be helpful?
You don't want to take that one?
No, go ahead.
Let's get you all over it.
No, go ahead, though.
Well, I'm going to tell you that all puppies at about 8 weeks of age, 7, 8 weeks, have arousal. So the thing is, when you're picking a puppy from a litter, it doesn't matter if it's bred for it or not. Almost all puppies will play tug at that age. And that's a really important thing to know. That's not drive, not at that age. That's a reflex. That's the dog seeing something moving fast and chasing it. Drive is the ability to remember that they really enjoyed that over time, have that love build, hold it in their memory. So when they can't see the object that they want, they are willing to work and earn it. And it's really important to understand this because I've yet to see a litter of 8-week-old puppies that did not play with toys and did not chase things. They all do. It's reflexive. So what I'm looking for at 8 weeks is not a dog's willingness to chase a tug. I would be kind of surprised if they don't. If they show no interest, I might have some concerns, but they could also just be tired. The number one thing I look for, this is my order: pedigree, parents, puppy. That is how I pick. The very first thing I'm looking for is depth of pedigree. That's more important to me than 2 good parents with no pedigree. Show me a pedigree that has generations of dogs showing the temperament and the working ability I want to see. I'll tell you something. I have an IGP3 title on a show dog. I have never worked so hard in my life. It's a lot of work. And he had a really good father, a moderate mother. And in my opinion, he was a very good dog, just as a dog. Not necessarily as a working dog. They're not the same. He was clear-headed, good boy. But he didn't have the prey. If he had been bred into a pedigree of 5 generations, you know the prey is going to be there. You don't have to see it at 8 weeks. Then I look at the parents, because the deepest pedigree in the world, only so many dogs really bring whatever skills you want. That's the nature of genetics. You have to have constant outliers. Otherwise, you have no diversity in your gene pool, right? So now I want to look, I've got a deep pedigree. Now I'm going to look for 2 parents that I think represent the pedigree. They don't have to be the best. They don't. I'm totally okay with them being even moderate. It just depends. And then the last thing I'm going to look at is the puppy. If I'm going to do a puppy test, I want to see puppies away from the litter, because the difference between a puppy who's got their litter behind them and on themselves, they're just night and day. I actually would prefer to see the person that is most familiar to the puppy do my puppy test. The reason is I don't want the puppy dealing with a stranger. I want to see, how do you tug for your owner? How much confidence do you have when you have your owner have your back in a new place? Go to the grocery store. Will you eat at 8 weeks of age in a new place that you've never been before, when there's crashing carts and stuff around you? Grocery store's perfect. I want a dog that will eat. That is such an indicator, because food solves a lot of problems. If you have problems and you have food, you got a chance. When you have a dog that has problems and doesn't have food, shuts down on the food. So I want to see a dog who will eat in public. I want, if a puppy will play tug in the middle of the shop, if it gets a little nervous and it will chase a rag, man, that's great, because that tells you that under stress. But I'm really okay with the owner doing all of this. It doesn't need to be me, a stranger, unless I want to do bite sports. If I want to do bite sports, when the owner's done doing all that crazy ass stuff, then I'm going to do some stuff, but I'm not going to put as much pressure. I want to see that the puppy will rely on a familiar person under stress. That tells me a lot. I personally like dogs that use their noses. So I'm very happy to go, because dogs that do a lot of visual stuff. I mean, there's breed issues here. My breed tends to have a little too much. They're suspicion. Suspicion. They're visually, what's this? They do too much of that, right? Dogs that drop their nose when they're under stress and just start sniffing, that makes me really happy, because that's a dog who is functioning well, not using its eyes, not over arousing itself. They're actually calming themselves down. I took Zen, not for this purpose, but for another reason, to a train station. I was waiting for somebody, and he looked around a little bit, really his head went to the ground, and he was sniffing and sniffing and sniffing. I had another dog who had massive behavior issues, and that dog could not sniff. He had such a hard time. I trained him to sniff, but it was really hard. It was visual, always looking and going up, 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 up. So those are things I would look for. I do think breed matters. If I was looking for a golden retriever, I wouldn't be nearly as worried about the puppy going up to random strangers with confidence as I am with a Belgian, because in a Belgian, that's a pretty high risk behavior, lack of sociability. With a golden, that's not as high risk of behavior. So with a golden, frankly, I would prefer a neutral puppy, that when the person calls it, the puppy goes up nicely, but not wah, right? Actually, I like that with all dogs.
Wait, how does that go?
So I guess those are kind of,
sorry,
those are things I'm looking for. Did I, let's see what else.
That was a great answer.
Those qualities, looking for an adult, a Rottweiler. Okay. So Rottweilers tend to be more stable. So with a Belgian, I would be more interested in things like, if I put a wobble board on the ground, if I put things that roll, do you startle? I would take that pretty seriously, because they are prone to nervous behavior, right? Rottweilers aren't generally nervous dogs. They're more calm. In a Rottie, I'd be looking for energy. I want a dog that can, especially the heavier built show line type dogs. I want a dog who wants to move, wants to run, wants to use their body. I don't worry about that with a Belgian. So those are the kind of things. That's kind of how I go about it, kind of what I look for. I take quite a bit of advice from the breeder. I'm very happy to listen to what the breeder has to say. I mean, assuming the breeder is well guided on these matters, but they really do have a lot of information about their dog. Just make sure they know the difference between things like drive and arousal. That's one where it's a killer. But if you ask them who's confident in this litter, I think they can give you some pretty good insight, because after 8 weeks, they've seen which ones startle and recover, which ones startle and hide, which ones spend a lot of time alone. The more independent puppy, they don't really need you. Which one is on your lap? Which one is always on your lap and doesn't seem to be able to function if they're not on your lap? Breeders are an awesome source of information for that sort of thing.
So we've got 4 more questions in our list, and I told them we're cutting them off after 4 more questions. So we're going to take a last 4.
We'll be here for 4 hours. Yeah, I get it.
So Karen says, environmental issues. I have a student whose dog is very obedient. He does all of the agility skills, but when at a trial, he gets a fair bit slower and distracted. He isn't as motivated as when he's at class. How best to help this dog? He is container insensitive trained. I'm not sure what that means entirely.
What that means? Is that the box game? Like where you're feeding in the box?
Oh, box feeding? Is that box feeding?
Incentive trained? Karen says incentive, not insensitive. Yes. She says yes. The box game.
I love that, by the way. And how does the dog do with that at shows? So if you have that, it basically just means you feed your dog a lot of food in a box, and then stuff happens in the environment over time. It gets more and more challenging, but the dog is so conditioned to loving that box and eating out of it that they are able to ignore all the weird shit happening around them. I think it's great, actually. And I like that, because you would take that to the event. And I'm assuming you do that and the dog is okay. This might be a case where trial experience helps you. And whatever is happening outside the ring should be pretty darn first class. If the owner is willing to throw some runs, this is a dog where you might consider going out there, looking around, finding the dog's favorite dog. I don't care if it's a tunnel or jump. Let the judge know you're going to do it. Go straight to it. 4 times around the tunnel, twice over the jump, out the ring you go. Party begins, right? If you're willing to do that, often throwing away runs can be a really valuable opportunity rather than trying to get through the whole thing, especially if the dog is having struggles. I don't know if you can do this in agility. I don't know if the dog is food or toys, but set your dog up on the start line, walk out, excuse yourself, run back to your dog and get the party started, right? So basically back chain, which you would also, by the way, start in training, back chain, getting a big reward outside the ring, whatever that is for that dog. It could just be tons of food. I don't know. Those are some of my thoughts, different stuff to add.
Yeah, I was saying like the fun runs where it's, you're getting to pay for the time, like at a what is that called?
We call them fun matches.
Fun matches.
I call them fun matches.
Yeah. So things like that's where I was going in my mind.
If you have them, some areas don't have them.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
Safa says, what do you think about training a dog with fear aggression in bite sports? It was recommended to me at a training facility as a way to give him more confidence and control, but I'm dubious. Dubious, not dubious, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's interesting about this. I had an extended conversation with a person a couple months ago about this topic, and he has had very good luck with this, with fear aggression. And here's the problem I have with it. I believe him. I trust this person, and I think that if he says he's having a lot of luck, I believe it's true. The problem is the person who could do that for you well, the decoy who could do that for you well, needs to be an exceptionally talented decoy who knows what they're doing, knows when to pressure, knows when to step back, knows how to reinforce. You need a quality of decoy that, in my opinion, is hard to find. And even if they were easy to find, you would have to know what you were looking for to know if it was the decoy who could do this kind of work. Because I think a lot of people would tell you they can do it, and they're just going to come out with whips and chains and bullshit. And it's like, that's the worst thing that could happen. And so and I expressed this to my friend who was telling me about his success. I said, I believe 100% that this is doable, possible. And at the same time, there's certain things that all kinds of people can do, but it takes so many pieces of skill. So that is a huge problem for me. And the second thing you need to think about is that if you do that, your dog now has bite sports training. And if you ever do have an accident with your dog, your liability just went through the roof, because you're never going to convince a jury that the bite sports training was designed to make the dog not bite, even if it's 100% true. So those two things would pretty much take it off the table for me under all circumstances. Doesn't mean it can't work and be impactful and effective.
Tamandra, not sure how this started, but my Mal has an arousal spike after leaving any building or low arousal situation and tries to activate me by bouncing and barking. I say we aren't doing that for now, and that helps, but anything I can do to make this clearer. He has an all done cue and a ready to train cue, so not sure why this happened.
I would be walking out the building, and before your dog has a chance, throw food on the ground. That's how I would handle it. What do you think?
Low arousal situation.
Life.
So every time there's a low arousal situation, the Mal goes up?
No. When leaving low arousal out into the real world. Like leaving your apartment complex where there's nothing happening, going out the door, and the dog goes up to the roof.
So it's all the demand barking and bouncing then? Yeah. I want a more
I'd sure want to beat it, though. I wouldn't want it to start and then you do the thing. And there's the sound clip for this. I would consider a beating.
I beat it.
Sometimes there's a place for the beating. I would not want it to start and then use the food, because I think that could very quickly become operant if the dog is trying to get you to do something.
Right.
I would want to cue it before you go out the door. Tell the dog, we're going to have a scatter. Open the door. Throw the food down. Have the scatter. Keep feeding that scatter for a minute. Go on your merry way. The dog might get a little aroused by the possibility of food, but make it boring food. That's, I think, where I would start.
I mean, give him a job. I feel like that's just always my answer, especially for Malinois. Give him a job. So if you're going out, then it's a with me cue, contact heel or It's just they need a job to do. Is my brain? Am I thinking of this wrong? Is this?
Well, I'm assuming it's a service dog, Tamandra. Yeah.
Oh, it's me. Oh, okay.
So the
now I
dog
realize who it is. Okay.
has a job, but maybe doesn't have enough of a job at that moment.
Yeah.
Oh, how about if you walk out the door, drop something on the ground, ask the dog to give it back to you, like use it as an opportunity to practice your service dog skills, whatever it is the dog is doing for you at this time.
Yeah, but just giving the dog
Low-key
the
job.
thing to do.
Low-key job.
So extra details in the chat box. Don't want it to be a habit, and he wants toys instead of food. Yes, it's a service dog.
But will he take food? Sometimes you don't get what you want.
Yeah.
Will he take food? Because if he will, I would make it a food cue. Yeah, he'll have a little disappointment, but counter conditioning arousal with a little disappointment is not a terrible thing if you're trying to get that edge down.
I will see if Tamandra adds more information. But in the meantime, last question for you guys. Becky, any advice for integrating a big physical goofball of a lab puppy with a small grumpy terrier in a small condo without access to a private backyard? Right now, I manage separation in the house, gates, and allow interaction when on hikes and off leash. The terrier is faster, more agile. But will time and maturity from the puppy help?
Yes. I love what you're doing. I think what you're doing is the right answer. So you are letting them together, and then just start letting them at home at night when nothing interesting is happening. You know, maybe you're chewing a bone over here, you're chewing a bone over here. But that sounds like it's safest to do it the way you're doing it at this point. Now, the way I did it with my small terrier and my bouncy dogs was I let my terrier straighten them out, and my dog does. So this is one of those cases where most people would say that's not a good idea, but I'll tell you, Brito knows how to discipline a Belgian puppy, and it's effective. So when they're 8 weeks old, within a day, I put them all together. The Belgian puppy goes over to him and he says, "If you do that again, I'll kill you." And the Belgian puppy says, "Really?" And he says, "Oh yeah, I will. I will kill you." And the Belgian's, but no. And then he like leaps on their back, goes, and he shows the most amazing impression of like a Stephen King stuffed animal character
that only terriers can do.
Oh my God, he's first class. At which point the Belgian puppy is screaming, head on the ground, and makes much better choices from that day forward. Now, why does that work? It works because my Belgians have no lack of confidence, and somebody, frankly, needs to beat them on the head around certain things, just not me. They don't feel things. They're very resistant. And he's very good about telling them first, I said, don't do that. But Belgians don't listen. Mine don't. And I monitor it. I never leave them alone unsupervised, right? Puppies are supervised anyway. And it starts from the time they're small, very small. And I've had amazing luck. He's raised all his Belgians that way. And, you know, he is getting older now, physically older. So I would probably be quicker to get in there just for safety reasons. But I do let him straighten out the Belgians. And I would step up so damn fast, like right now. If I had a situation now where he told the Belgian, and it actually does happen, Zen will come over. If Brito's been away all day with me and Zen hasn't been there and I've been around dogs, then Zen is annoying to Brito when they come back. So he comes in and he gets kind of flirty, like, "Oh, you've been with girls." And Brito says, "Go away." And Zen's like, "Oh, you don't mean it." I step in right away and I take Zen away. I back that up. I've always backed up my little dog. So I think the little dog knows, worst case scenario, I'll step in, but I absolutely let him straighten them out when they're small. Everybody has to be small for this to work. And he's never drawn blood, nothing. He just puts on one hell of a show and it works. It works for the dogs, my dogs.
I don't know if tetherbord is something that you would.
Yeah, that you totally do that.
Okay. That's something else I really like doing as a tetherbord. That was something Susan showed me.
Yep.
And that was huge because it let the puppy be in the space. And it's like a 4-foot board with a nut in the middle, and then it goes to the harness, and the puppy can be in the space doing all the things. But when we don't want to be interacting and the other dogs don't want to be interacting, then it's like, okay, we can get in our own space and we're all good. And the puppy can kind of learn that way. And you said goofball of a lab. So keeping that in mind too. I mean,
you know, what I did with my tether was I just tied the cable to my desk. So the dog had 6 feet. He could go behind the couch. He could go under the desk with me. He could go, but the dogs, everybody knows what how much space that is. I had to stop doing it because I started seeing barrier aggression, and then we're not doing that. So
that's
but it was great until then.
The lab. So
I know
that's
labs totally good for a lab.
Especially when you say goofball, I'm like, that's
a
what
lab.
I would do.
Yeah.
So everybody can be safe and free.
So that was our last question from the live, and we are at about 2 hours. So anybody have final thoughts? You want to pitch the play one day conference one more time?
Join us.
It's so much fun.
It's way fun. It's way fun. I hope you're there. If you haven't and you're near Wilmington, Ohio, also look at our camp. Dog Sports Camp is a riot.
I'm stoked about that.
Way entertaining.
Me
So
too.
actually pretty much everything with FDSA is way entertaining. It's the way we run the show. So if you can take something with us, do it. If you need help picking, send a note to the help desk and somebody will give you personalized individual advice. They will walk you through your options. And that's a big deal because we offer so much stuff that if you're new to the school, you might be really overwhelmed. So take advantage of it. Send your note into the help desk and one of our folks will get you on your way.
I mean, look at Melissa. It's like as soon as you mention an article, she's like in the thing.
That's Melissa works our help desk sometimes.
You're like
so
in there. I mean, everybody's so amazing.
Good people, really good people. And we'd love to have you.
Awesome.
We like our newcomers. You can come by yourself. You'll have a wonderful time. You won't leave alone. I guarantee you. I mean, I didn't mean that. That might've come out wrong.
46 and single. Yay.
If anybody knows somebody appropriate for Crystal, send your recommendations to the help desk, and we will
use some more
evaluate.
gentlemen coming to camp.
Yeah,
So find out if he's allergic to jute.
and he
'cause that's
doesn't.
going to be a problem.
She doesn't like to sit. Remember, she's giving you a lot of clues about what she's looking for. She doesn't sit well. She wants something active, likes to hike, probably likes dogs. Good thing.
And not allergic to jute.
There you go. So keep your eyes open, please.
Oh my Lord.
Oh, all right, guys. Thank you, everybody who's still with us. We had a pretty good group here today. And
We
thank you,
did.
Denise. Thank you, Crystal. I think this was excellent.
Thank you all. You guys all take care.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
You, Melissa. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.